Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order on Monday, February 28th, 7:00 p.m. in the Merrill Sinet Community Room at Thompson Town Hall, as well as available via Zoom. As we get to the public hearing and to citizens' comments, we do have a sign up here. If you're interested in speaking at the public hearing or in citizens' comments, we ask you to sign in or indicate in the chat if you're on Zoom. For both the public hearing and in citizens' comments, please do state your name and address. We will have 3 minutes for each commenter during both citizens' comments and the public hearing. We ask all comments to be addressed to the chair in a civil and respectful manner. We will begin with the roll call. Mr. Blackmer, Randy Blackmer.
Ray Williams.
Miss White. Ms. White.
David Kowalski.
John B. Lanky. Ms. White.
Alvin Hill.
I'm not registered voter now. Merely a landowner.
That's all it is.
I'm here.
Mr. Hill and Joseph Brody Brown. Just order, can we?
Yeah, that's what this says. Oh, yes, yes.
We will seat no one. We don't have an alternate here.
These are for the
No.
commissioners. These are the agendas.
I mean, they.
Fine.
Santa? He's on vacation.
Key West. I don't blame him.
Yes.
Yes.
John?
You get my agenda.
No, I forgot somebody reminded me, so it's there now.
I would have signed it.
Well,
That's an agenda there.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they-
Okay, item 3, public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission, application 22-02. Applicant Danielle J. Robbins, property owner 0 Thompson Road, map 87, block 37, lot 2C, zone RRAD, re-subdivision.
Somebody need a larger, no, I don't have it, I apologize. He has the.
No, I have it. Pull it up.
Oh, you talking?
Mr. Williams.
I'd like to make it a motion to change the agenda.
Just that one, Mr. Chair.
Yes, yeah, we just started item 3. Can you make it after item 3 or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Norm Tebow. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Quinley Engineering Associates, and I'm here representing Danielle Robbins here this evening. Now, the lot
For the minutes, Gloria Kais is in.
Thank you.
Kais-
We will
I'm
seat
sorry.
Kai's or for Charlene Langley. Charlene? Sorry.
Okay, not a problem. Not a problem. The lot that we are here before you with this evening is shown as parcel A on this map. We did this, an agricultural split in 2018 from Merrill Robbins and Lynn O'Brien. This was an agricultural parcel. And by section 818 of the Connecticut General Statutes, you are allowed to create agricultural splits for family members and so forth without going through the subdivision process. That's what we did back in 2018. We came back before you in 2020 to actually for the development of what was known as parcel B here. We came before you, we had to subdivide it at that time. And in order to, one of the issues or one of the requirements is that if you do an agricultural split, you cannot use it for a development lot unless you go through the subdivision process. So we did that for parcel B in 2020. We're here before you now for parcel A for Danielle Robbins, which is this parcel right over here. So here's the parcel A. The driveway that we are proposing is on the extreme western portion of the lot. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this section of Thompson Road, Route 193. There's a barn here, sort of at the inflection point of the road, where sightline is pretty questionable because you've got some brush here. You've got the road, Route 193 starts to dive down in elevation, and then looking back towards.
He's got his mask on.
It's somebody from, I got to mute somebody from the online.
And if you're looking back toward the east, there's some vegetation in this area that blocks the sightline. So we selected this spot because it provided the best affordable sightline. I think as part of your packages, you have some correspondence from the Connecticut DOT, who sent a letter to us saying that the sightline that we had shown was inadequate. And what we were showing was a sightline along the frontage of the wall here. After going back out to the site and having some discussions with the Connecticut DOT, we revised the sightline and resubmitted it to the Connecticut DOT. So if you look here, what we are now providing, looking to the east, we have 500 feet of sightline, and looking to the west, we have 500 feet of sightline as well. By the way that if we're going by the basically the word of the law here, that the sightline requirements are taken not from the speed limit, but by the 85th percentile speed, and that is the speed at which 85% of the cars travel at or faster. So by that, we are actually required to have 530 feet, just not attainable anywhere on this lot, going up or down. And if we head further to the west, it gets worse. We're able to get great sight line and increased sight line looking to the east, but the sight line to the west is diminished. So with that in mind, we resubmitted it to DOT. I've been having conversations with them, and I had actually received an email correspondence from them today at 3:31 p.m., which I forwarded to Cindy, but apparently she didn't get it. But I did print out a copy of it, and that email is from Gary Brigham, who is the Transportation District Service Agent 2. Norman, our traffic engineer, has reviewed the revised sight line and driveway demonstration on Route 193 in Thompson for Danielle Robbins, and has no further comment. So they are good with this. They just didn't have time to issue their letter. They are sort of in a transition phase right now at the DOT because a lot of the people that have worked there for the past 5 or 6 years kind of moved on. They've got all new people in positions, and they're all kind of scrambling to catch up with things. But Mr. Brigham was kind enough to at least send me the email, and he apologized for not having a letter on the official letterhead. But I'm hoping that this email correspondence from him would be sufficient. We've also received approval for this lot. This is going to be a 4-bedroom home. We've got a 4-bedroom system shown in the southeastern portion of the site. The driveway, as we've shown it before, The septic system has been approved by the Northeast District Department of Health. And there's really not a whole lot to this. We're not proposing any new roads. We're not proposing any significant changes to the site. We are going to be doing a little bit of clearing along the road here to improve the sight line in this area. But everything will be on the owner's property. So we do not have to disturb the stone walls. Unfortunately, these stone walls are nice and low. So even though there are portions of the sight line that actually look over the stone wall, they're low enough so that we can obtain the sight line that's required just by looking over the wall and not having to remove anything. I can show you that here, how the sight line actually goes. If you are looking to the west, as you can see, we're kind of looking behind the wall along here. There's some vegetation that's going to have to be cleared there. There are some larger trees, but there's also a lot of overgrown invasive vegetation, things like bittersweet and Russian olive and so forth. So that stuff is taken down. You can kind of see by the barn, and then the road starts to dip at that point. It's it gets much more difficult. But we do have 500 feet either way, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. One other thing I wanted to mention too, I know that when the commission first accepted this application last month, it was defined as a re-subdivision. This is not a re-subdivision. It's actually just a subdivision. So even though I spoke with Cindy the next day, and she agreed with me that a public hearing wasn't required, in the essence of time, we said, well, we're just going to go through the public hearing process since you already scheduled it. I didn't want to withdraw the application and resubmit, lose 2 months. And so that's why we're back here before you tonight.
We did amend the application last month. Unfortunately, it didn't get onto the agenda of being amended. Subdivision as opposed to the resubdivision.
Any questions for the applicant at this time from the commission? Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Popowski?
So could you explain how you got from I didn't follow how you got from the line of sight of 430 and 340 to be now 500 without doing much?
Well, what we were showing previously, looking to the west,
Yeah,
we were looking in front of the wall here. We showed the sight line in front of the wall. And after speaking with the DOT, they said, well, it's okay to look behind the wall, you don't have to look completely down the road. If you're going by that, we were kind of limiting it by the curvature of the road at this point.
okay.
So by looking behind the wall, we've actually picked up that about 160 feet of sight line looking in that direction.
And what did you do the other direction?
The other direction, we just clipped the corner a little bit more closely. We are allowed to actually look over the exact corner of the property next to us. What you can't do, even though the sight line is much greater than the 500 feet here, you're not allowed to actually peer over. You're not allowed to demonstrate the sight line by looking over the property next door, because technically they could plant vegetation there or
Sure.
something to block your sight line or something.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. O'Neill?
No comment.
Any other questions from the commission or the app? Any other questions or comments from the public at this time? Yeah, it was George. Mhm. Hearing none. Mr. Rice?
Chairman, I'll make a motion for the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Rice, seconded by Mr. Hill to close the public hearing. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes vote will close the public hearing. A no vote will keep it open. Mr. Blackmer. Andy Blackmer, yes.
Alvin Hill, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Gergel, yes.
Dave Poplawski, yes.
John B. Linky, yes.
Ms. Orr
yes,
and Joseph Brody Brown, yes. Public hearing is closed. Before we move to item 4, Mr. Williams.
I'd like to make a motion. We could move the second set of citizens' comments to after we have our discussion on the 490 before we could take any action on it. We could have these citizens' comments in between them two. So people here that want to speak on it, we can listen to them before we make our decisions on our final decision. That'd be what, number 13 of the, like, no. I don't have my,
So I'm sorry,
We didn't get it.
this thing keeps closing up
Oh,
on me.
you have a, you have an agenda?
so you wanted before, but, so there's,
I would like to move 15 to after the discussion on 13E and before any actions taken.
so to make 15, 14 and 14, 15.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Williams to amend the agenda to place item 15 as item 14 and item 14, review of ZBA applications.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, no, that's
No,
not
I'd
correct.
like
I'm
to-
sorry,
I'd
that's
like to
not correct.
split
Yeah.
item E.
Mr. Williams has moved to amend the agenda to split item 13E into two separate items, the discussion of PA 490 and the possible action on PA 490, and to move item 15, citizens' comments, between those two items.
I second that motion.
Seconded by Ms. Salsi. Any discussion on the motion? So, yeah, so the motion would split item 13E into discussion of PA 490. And the second item, public possible action on PA 490. That would be a second item, and citizens' comments would be in between. Mr. Rice.
So Stanley, you're gonna say, you're gonna have the discussion on PA 90, 490, and then citizens' comments and then action?
Yes.
Yeah.
Council.
Believe so.
Yes, I would say that would cancel number 15.
Any discussion on the motion?
Want to know why, what the reason behind it is.
So that we
To
can
me,
get-
it doesn't make much difference. If we leave it alone, that's what we set it up for, so we could discuss, citizens can discuss anything before that. Here, we're putting it in between two different items. And then it doesn't make sense to me. You know,
Well,
Me personally, I'd rather leave it alone and then it can be discussed by the citizens can still make their comments. They still have their turn.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Mr. Williams, Ms. Salsi, and then
But
Mr.
then the
Rice.
citizens don't get to speak on what is brought up on the discussion. This way here, they get to speak before we make our final decision.
So in other words, what you're saying,
Mr.
Mr. Williams, is down the
Mr.
road.
Lincoln,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Lincoln.
sorry.
Ms. Salsi.
I was just gonna actually say what Ray said. It gives the citizens a chance to, what the discussion is, gives them a chance to be able to speak on it before we possibly take any action on
But we may need.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Hill. Sorry, I should have Mr. Rice and then you, Mr. Hill.
I think the citizens' comment on number 5, they can discuss anything that's on the agenda. So if they have an opportunity at that point to discuss that PA 490.
Mr. Hill.
Well, I mean, it's important for us prior to citizens' comment on 490 to have a discussion amongst us.
Yes.
And I've posed a change already. We got to be able to discuss that.
it. Yeah, and to follow suit with what Alvin just said, yes, what we discussed, but then give the citizens a chance to take in what we have discussed and be able to make their comments before we take any action on it. So anything new that comes up gives them the ability to have a say on what we have discussed before we take action on it. And that's the fair thing to do. So that anything that we are bringing up, because right now they only know what's on these papers. So something else that comes up, we want to be able to give them the chance to speak on it before we take any action on it. Because obviously, there's a lot of people here tonight, and I'm thinking that a lot of it has to do with that, so people do want to be heard. And if we're discussing something that isn't on this paperwork, like Alvin said, he's making changes, we need to give them a chance to speak up on it before we make a decision. If a decision is to be made. It's the right thing to do.
Any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Blanky?
Why don't we just take that whole 13E, if we're gonna be, if we do this tonight and set a precedent, this can happen going down the road. Okay? So that's what the agenda is for. But if we want to do this to appease, why don't we just take it and move it right up after we get all the applications and stuff done and get it over and done with and go with that.
To that, you mean take that section, what we're discussing, and then give them the chance to do it up at the top at the beginning of the agenda. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to work with you here. I mean, you want to get the comments in, but we set an agenda last month. This is how we were going to do things. And to give people still a discussion in the beginning and the end. But now we want to take this one on the end. Oh, we want to move it up so we can have this here. So if we do that next meeting or the next meeting after the meeting out, we're just going to end up doing this, moving this thing around. Let's stick to the rules.
Can I say something to staff, if you're, John? Under the new business, they'll just go on the agenda as they come into the office. And you have two people ahead of you that are not going to want to sit here and wait hour and a half
Well,
for
then,
that discussion to go
then
through.
okay, I agree with that. But then why don't we just take the last agenda and make it a floating agenda so we can do this?
Mr. Williams?
Well,
I get it.
agendas get amended all the time, so I don't see what the difference is amending this one than any other one that's been amended in any of the last meetings.
Can I make it?
It's not making a precedent.
It's not making, may I speak?
Okay.
We can make it even simpler. If you take section E, discussion and possible action. Let's do the discussion. Take the possible action after the citizens' comments, okay?
That's what I
Okay,
said.
that's what you
But-
said. That wasn't, okay, I just clarified it.
But if you want, we'll move it. You want to do it, then we'll move it right up after all the applications are done that we have. We have what, 3 on the agenda, 4?
No, we don't have any application.
Any other applications on the agenda? No?
Yeah, but
You know, that's why I say the new business is formatted in the order they come into the office. Or the secretary's old, what to put on the agenda when she's doing the agenda, something was there before, got sent out. Joe and John.
Well, I'll leave, to me, Mr. Chair, that's your decision as well.
well, it's a commission's decision at this
Well,
point. So the proposal, as I understand it, and please correct me, Mr. Williams, if I'm mistaken, would be 13E, discussion of PA 490, open space language for POCD. Item 14 would be citizens' comments. Item 15 would be possible action of PA 490, open space language for POCD. Item 16 would be review of ZBA applications. And 17, 16, 17, and 18 would become 17, 18, and 19. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes vote will amend the agenda. A no vote will keep the agenda as written. Mr. Lenke.
No.
Mr. Rice.
Yeah.
Mr. Krogel,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Solacey,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Blackmer.
Yes.
Ms. Orr,
yes,
Joseph Ferrari Brown, yes. The agenda is so amended. Item 4, discuss public hearing and possible action, Planning and Zoning Commission 22-02, applicant Danielle J. Robbins, property owner 0 Thompson Road, map 87, block 37, lot 2C, zone RRD, re-subdivision, which is actually a sub. Any discussion on the public hearing, members of the commission?
Just like to ask Cindy, if everything is in order on it. I didn't see anything out of order.
Yeah, because I have that, email from the Department of Transportation, everything's fine. I got the certificate of mailing, placed in the record here.
And that DOT communication is sufficient. Any further discussion?
Move that we approve the subdivision.
Motion made to approve the subdivision for application 22-02 by Mr. Blackmer,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Krogel. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Rice,
Just that the last letter that we discussed on DOT, I'd like to have that part of the record before you sign that.
the official letter, is that what?
Right,
Oh, the official letter,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, the email. There's other things that they mention in their letter, given the approval rather than just that sight line.
DOT usually sends me a copy anyway, so.
Is that, would you, like that, it's like to see that as a condition of acceptance
Your approval of the Mylar signing,
of the sign?
just so we have it in the record rather than an email.
Will you amend your motion
Yes.
to include that condition? You
Yes.
second as amended? And the motion has been amended to include that condition and seconded as amended by Mr. Krogel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, a yes will approve application 22-02 for subdivision with one condition. A no will not approve the application. Mr. Blackburn.
Randy Blackmer, yes.
Mr. Hill.
Alvin Hill, yes.
Ms. Salsa, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Krugel, yes.
All right, good.
John B. Linky, yes.
Ms. Orr.
Kaiser Levak, yes.
Joseph Ferrari Brown, yes. Okay, item 5, citizens' comments. Mr. Warner.
Bill Warner, 243 Lowell Davis Road. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to a couple of issues on your agenda. At the last meeting, I raised the issue that this board was continually violating their own bylaws. You said you would research the issue. I expected a response on a memo from staff, which I believe is what the memo from the DO and the agenda is tied to. I was actually hoping you would actually read your own bylaws. I also see the memo from the DO addresses an ad in the Shoppers Guide. I assume this is in response to an ad my wife and I placed regarding the sports regulation of chicken. The 10th edition of your zoning regulations dated September 30th, 2021, ended October 22, 2021. States except for the necessary routine maintenance and repairs of existing buildings as defined in the Connecticut State Building Code, no land shall be used and no building or structure shall be erected, moved, enlarged, or extended into a zoning permit for the proposed work or use as been issued by the Commissioner of the Code. It also states in Article 4, Section 4, General Provisions for all districts, Section 5, Household Domestic Fowl, located on page 28, that no more than 10 to fowl of any combination of species or breeds shall be permitted. Does not say that you can have up to 10 chickens without needing a permit. It says shall be permitted. Me, that means I need a permit. Especially when regulations say I need a permit for any use of my property when a use, as defined on page 117, means any purpose for which any activity is carried out on a lot or parcel. The regulations also state in Article 3A, Section 5 exemption, the following structures shall not require the issuance of a zoning permit under these regulations. The only things listed are fences and mailboxes. Based on the wording of your regulations, if I wish to get 10 chickens or turkeys, I need a permit for the bird. And another one for the coop. This would cost at least $100. Should I decide I want a dozen birds, which I may do because they're usually sold by the dozen, I also need to go to the zoning board of appeals to appeal your no more than 10 rule. Another $335. Now, although your regulations say permits are required, people contacting the town hall are told permits are not required when they get chickens. Are they required for chicken coop? Are they required for more than 10 chickens? Recently, a resident of Thompson, who has only been here for a year, posted on Thompson Grovendale Facebook forum that he had gotten 80 chickens and turkeys and he didn't have any problems. He also brought into town 2 horses and 2 goats. He never applied for a permit for any of his animals. I recommended the resident apply for a permit for his animals because of your regulation. He said he was told he didn't need to get a permit. In response, one member of the zoning board of appeals stated, as far as he was concerned, every chicken in Thompson has been here for 5+ years. His grandfather didn't. End of discussion. Does that mean zoning permits are no longer required in Thompson for animals? Or at least for chickens? I used to be on the zoning board of appeals. I didn't know we had that kind of power. Had I known that then, I probably would have ran for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Ms. Clark.
Hillary Clark, 105 Elm Road. This is regarding the PA 490 program that you'll be addressing later this evening. Regarding the topic of the PA 490 program, as you're probably aware, the Agriculture Commission expended considerable hours researching the details of the PA 490 program and received substantial input from the citizens of the town of Thompson in support of the recommendation, which will come before you tonight. I want to make sure everyone here understands that the PA 490 open space issue has very little to do with PA 490 and everything to do with doing the right thing. The open space program, which has been administered in good faith by multiple assessors in town for decades, has been taken away from the townspeople, and most of them aren't even aware the change has happened. Over 50% of the properties in town were covered under the open space program, according to the Plan of Conservation and Open Space. That coverage has been taken away, not with the townspeople's permission, not by a vote, not communicated openly to the townspeople, but by a discovery of an omission in execution on the part of the town. People of the town of Thompson have expressed their distrust in the elected officials, employees and commissioners on the various boards, and in particular, the Planning and Zoning Commission. The right thing to do in service of the town people is to restore the program that they thought was in place all this time and begin to restore their faith that they are being represented fairly and their best interests are being protected. This is why we need to work to codify the open space program in town before the end of the fiscal year. 3 acres of undeveloped land is eligible to be covered under the open space program as voted by the P&Z on 6/18/1979. The Agriculture Commission's recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission was written to most closely reflect the way land in Thompson currently assessed at open space values was designated as such. This provision benefits the town and the townspeople. It's important to recognize that the open space provision of PA 490 was designed to be a municipal expenditure reduction program, as well as keeping in mind its many provisions, which include specifying protection of public recreation areas, availability of land which can be easily converted to cropland or timberland, and providing access to private landowners to the same benefits afforded to businesses operating farms or forest land. Please do the right thing. Now's not the time to nitpick about acreage or the type of acreage each of us might envision or desire to be covered under this program. It's time to restore the people's faith in their town government, restore the open space program, and keep it the way it was for the past 43 years. Please adopt the recommendation from the Agricultural Commission without modification and without delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to the next public comment, just as sort of a point of order, I had what Valerie just read as one of the pieces of correspondence to be consistent. Would you like me to read the rest of the correspondence after the rest of the citizens' comments?
Yes.
To keep it all in one place.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, Dennis Jackson? My apologies.
My name is Dennis Saxon. I live on Fabian Road in North Somerville. And I'm here to address the issue of paintball activity within my neighborhood. And the reason being is I have submitted, and my neighbors have submitted various emails to the selectmen, which were forwarded to the CEO, and was supposedly allegedly forwarded over to the committee regarding noise, safety issues, and basically the dangers of being hit by one of these paintballs. We've had multiple incidents where vehicles have been hit, buildings have been hit, garage doors, and we find these things on the front lawn and out in the road. And the other issue that we have with that is our grandkids, when they come to the house and they play, I mean, we're concerned with them being hit by one of these things. I've got an example of what one looks like. It's, 13 millimeters, it hurts when it comes out of one of those air guns. The hollering, the language used, and the noise just from the paintball guns themselves, it's kind of frightening for the kids. And what we'd like to do is just to kind of find out what we can do and what actions we can take, or what actions this commission can take in order to, alleviate some of this, problem. We have forwarded numerous emails, photos, pictures to Commissioner Lenke, who has a record of. And like I say, we're just trying to find out what our actions would be, the neighbors we need to do to stop this for all, once and for all. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Vernon Butler?
Not till after.
Oh, okay. Vern Butler, 343 Sandam Road, Morning Beckons Farm, in case anybody doesn't know. Want to talk a little bit about the PA 490 program that the Ag Commission and the recommendation that we made. I think the process used by the Ag Commission to provide our recommendation is important to understand. We had an expert on PA 490, Joan Nichols from Connecticut Farm Bureau, talk to the Ag Commission about the open space program. This is an excerpt from this Connecticut Farm Bureau document about PA 490 open space program, as it is referred to by the Connecticut state website. The term open space land means any area of land, including forest land, land designated as wetland under section 22A 30, and not excluding farmland, the preservation or restriction of use which would, A, maintain, enhance conservation of natural or scenic resources, protect natural streams or water supply, C, promote conservation of soils, wetlands, beaches, or tidal marshes, D, enhance the value of public or abutting neighboring parks, forests, wildlife preserves, nature reservations, or sanctuaries or other open spaces, enhance public recreation opportunities, preserve historic sites, or promote orderly urban or suburban development. That's the definition. Thompson added this program to its plan of development in 1979, and the town has been using this program for all PA 490 applications since that point in time. Not using any of the other ones. We're not using farmland, we're not using forestry. The problem is that the state of Connecticut enacted a new stipulation for this program about 2 weeks after this was adopted, requiring a majority vote by the legislative body of the municipality. From what we can find, this never happened. When Joan was made aware of this, Joan Nichols was made aware of this situation, she advised that the town codify what was approved in 1979 and make changes at a later date if necessary. And here's why. We have about 80 properties or 80 landowners that are under this program, and some of them have been in more than 40 years. They're all done improperly. They all have to reapply this year. All of them. If you change the rules on this and they can't get in that same program after being in it for 40 years, now that little thing we had with the range, that's going to seem like gun range, that's going to seem like a kid's birthday party. Seriously. It's not going to be pretty. You got a lot of people in this program, a lot of land in it. Want to make changes? Make them later.
Ms. White?
Sally White, 308 East Thompson Road, and for the record, because someone asked if I had credibility as a speaker, I have owned 48 acres rounded for over 30 years. And in regards to the open space, I would ask the people that were candidates in November, if at candidates night, people had asked, well, we see on the horizon that there might be someone that suggests that we alter the open space program. And we would be seeking to decrease the acreage allowed in the program and add more restrictions. I wonder how would you all have responded? So I hope you would consider that when you perhaps take action tonight. It seems that the rational thing to do would be to continue the policy as it is, for the main reason that no one has challenged it. No legal authority, not the state, not any landowner in town. It has been in process in a harmonious manner and it's been successful. Another point is neither the state nor the town has met the desired percentage of land that is wanted in the open space program. So in the alternative language that perhaps may be offered that decreases the acreage, that's perplexing. Why would you seek to decrease the acreage that has been allowed when we haven't even met the floor of what is desired for the program? So that's rather peculiar. And then I think it does carry a lot of weight that the director of the Connecticut Farm Bureau, Joan Nichols, who's very familiar with the program, has recommended that it be kept intact, that it continue as it has been with no interruption. This was an administrative oversight with no intent to do anything wrong or to fool anyone. So if it was an administrative oversight, then it seems the only rational and reasonable thing to do would be simply to go through the process to codify it. Because why would you seek to alter it? It gives the appearance that there's an effort to exploit this. And no evidence has been brought forth that it would be to the benefit of the people involved in the program or to any of the citizens who enjoy the fact that we have some level of open space. Where is the benefit to alter it And to whose benefit would it go? That has not been disclosed. So I think that those are,
That was 2 minutes. Right.
you have a very accurate clock. Thank you.
Mr. Vanderman?
My comments were on the issue involving an acre.
Okay, so you'd like to wait to the later citizens' comments? Thank you. Mr. Burt?
The first 180 Elmwood Hill School, I just wanna figure this out. You're not allowed more than 10 birds. Chickens, ducks, roosters. Can any of you answer how you come up with that? Number 10?
Right here, I'll be giving later on if you want me to answer that, but we're just listening to the comments.
Yeah, the CEO will be addressing that later in the agenda.
I hope so. I raise over 200 birds on my property. I don't bother any people here. I don't expect to bother me.
Mr. Burt. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I addressed the commission today on an issue that relates to some of the earlier speakers. And it speaks and addresses the social contract between the town and the people. And that's the essence, and I think, of the issue at hand. Since the founding of this town in 1785, we established a corporate entity, and people came and lived here. They farmed, they raised their families, and they put down roots. They have property, which certainly is amongst their most valuable assets. So the town has the ability to contract the people. By being citizens, we cede our rights. Some rights to the town, saying we'll pay taxes, we'll adhere to the laws, a variety of other things. The town in turn gives to us education for students, as well as a variety of other administrative tasks. So there's a contract in place. A consideration of the people in the town is that we will keep our land in open space. We're given the benefit of lower taxes. The town, if we breach that agreement, would raise, and there's a penalty clause associated with that. So there's an offer to do so. We participate. There's an acceptance by the town for us to participate in the program. Consideration is given in this contract by reduced taxes. We are legal. It's a legal issue. They're competent parties to contract. Concern I have here is that this contract, in any other forum, if you had an agreement and you had perfected that agreement for 40 years, now you're trying to renege on it, which apparently is the essence of what I hear here tonight, then you'd be stopped, you'd be prevented from doing so. So I'd ask the commissioners and consider the social component. And not only that, so that we breach of the contract between the town and the people, as suggested by one speaker, leave it the way it is, memorialize it, get it all papered over as it should have been, because that might very well have been a breach in the town side, a negligence or even an error of some sort. So those are the essential elements. And further, I think it would help this commission, given its track record of the last 6 or 8 months, from a moral standpoint, because a number of the issues that have come before this commission have been brought into question as to whether they're the right thing to do, whether they're ethical, and what other factors are driving it. So, Commissioner, thank you very much for the opportunity. Just do the right thing. Do the right thing when this issue comes up. All your commissioners, I think, will enhance the authority and position of your chair. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill. Mr. Brissette?
Sean Bissett, 342 Old Ames Road. Interesting, just said, because one of the comments that I had not intended to make, but apparently tonight. You know, it's difficult sitting in your chair, one of the most, in my opinion, difficult missions in town, because you're dealing with property rights. And that's a big topic of discussion right now. People are against taking away any property rights. But interestingly enough, we have somebody that spoke tonight that is being essentially harassed in their neighborhood by somebody who's misusing their property. So for everybody who's against losing any property rights, how do they feel for families in that neighborhood that basically are being tormented by the way somebody's using their property? And that's what you guys have to consider. Majority sometimes is right and sometimes it's not right. You guys have to make that decision, including new members who haven't always voted with the majority since they've been on. And I know you guys haven't always voted with the majority. So hopefully people can start to realize that sitting in your chair isn't easy. And at least speak with respect. And it's happening tonight, which is good because the last few meetings I've come here, I think it's been a very disrespectful audience. To that point, one of the issues that you have to deal with again is the shooting range. Everybody understands it's a big hot topic. And it has to be revisited because unless I'm misunderstanding it, that night you voted it down, which means it is not permitted, which means, in my opinion, the absolute ridiculous sentence that you have in your regulations that said if it's not permitted, then it's not permitted. Whole other discussion, you should get rid of that. Right now, it's not permitted. So my opinion is you do revisit it. And somebody puts up a regulation that states Thompson's P&Z regulation will not exceed the state regulation. Period. End of discussion. Put this to bed. There are too many people in town that love to go after low-hanging fruit. Right now, that subject is being used to just enrage people. Whether you plan on bringing it back up or not doesn't matter. It's being said that you're going to bring it back up and you're going to try to impose it. So put it to bed simply by following the state regulations. Nobody can argue with that. They can't come back at you. If the state increases their regulations, there's nothing you can do. But if we don't go above the state, that should please 600 and some odd people that were at the auditorium screaming about property rights. And trust me, I agreed with it. I did not want to see regulations, which, by the way, my next door neighbor was one of the women that spoke for some regulations because she's scared. She's elderly. She doesn't like the guns. I've talked with her. We get along great, but that night you couldn't please both of us. So to think you can please everybody, you can't. But even that night, there was no way you were pleasing both of us. I didn't want regulations and she did. So I think time to put that item to bed once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. Anyone on Zoom?
If anybody on Zoom would like to make a comment here under citizens comment, please type your name. Blair Cole. Okay, go ahead. State your name and address.
Hi, Blair Cole, 172 County Home Road, Thompson, Connecticut. I submitted a letter to the town hall today. I wasn't able to attend the meeting in person tonight, and the idea being that that would be read into the record. And so my first question to you would be, did you receive that? And if not, I'll read it.
Yeah, I've got it right here, Blair. In fact, as soon as we're done with the live comments, I have a little stack here that I was going to read in order of receipt, including yours.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Anybody else in the Zoom room who would like to make a comment, please put your, either raise your hand or type your name and address into the chat box. All right, so I will now read the correspondence that was received. This all came in today. I'll read it in the order that it was received. Valerie's was actually first, but she read hers in full, so I will not repeat it. This is from Robert and Susan Vincent, 112 County Home Road in Thompson. Sirs, you have, and it, I'll point out because there are multiple pages here, I received duplicate copies of several of these. Sirs, you have an agenda item on your February 28th, 2022 meeting under new business for discussion and possible action regarding PA 490 open space language for POCD. We attended the February 24th, 2022 meeting of the Agricultural Commission and believe it would be in the best interest of the town to approve the open space ordinance as approved that evening by the commission. Thank you for your consideration. Robert and Susan Vincent. Next I have, and again, these were received duplicate copies, Karen and Blair Cole. Dear board members, I am writing to urge the members of the Town of Thompson Planning and Zoning Commission to complete the work on the open space classification for the Town of Thompson as intended by residents and the town and the Thompson Planning Commission at the meeting of 18th June 1979 by approving and moving forward in proper order of action the amendment to the POCD regarding Public Act 490 and open space as approved by the Agricultural Commission meeting of February 24th, 2022. The minutes of the 18 June 1979 meeting clearly state residents' concern for the preservation of the environment in the town. I think we can all agree that since 1979, pressure to develop open space has increased relentlessly. We need only look at surrounding towns to see the effects of unrestrained development on the environment in the town of formerly bucolic agricultural communities. Open space is a feature, not a flaw, in the town of Thompson. Preservation of the historical New England character of Thompson deserves special consideration, and the amendment to the POCD regarding Public Act 490 and open space is an important tool to help us preserve the environment in the town that our fellow townspeople voted to approve at that meeting on 18th June 1979. We owe it to them to complete that task and work together to preserve the special rural charm of Thompson for future generations. Thank you, Karen and Blair Cole. This was received by email to my office at 2:19 p.m. today from Michael St. Lawrence. It is my understanding that the town of Thompson is considering revising its open space taxation policy. I urge the P&Z Commission to proceed slowly and study the potential implications of any major changes before acting. Benchmarking other municipalities' experiences would provide valuable data to support the decision. Please keep in mind that there will be short-term and long-term impacts on the community. In implementing Public Act 490, the state of Connecticut did study these impacts with the following language inserted in the act. When the legislature passed Public Act 490 in 1963, it included and continues to this day in the law's wording that it was in the public interest to encourage the preservation of farm, forest, and open space land. Thus, in this respect, it is very fair. Additionally, even with the lower property taxes collected, the towns do not sacrifice property tax revenues because of Public Act 490. Studies done across the nation and closer to home by the American Farmland Trust have conclusively proven that property tax revenues generated by farm, forest, or open space land are far greater than the expenditures by the town to service that land. Under the current structure, the residential sector costs the town more to service than the amount of property tax generated from that sector. Because commercial and industrial development require services and attract more residents, these sectors may also result in increased tax burdens. Thus, farm, forest, and open space land can actually help control and maintain reasonable rates of property taxation for all of a town's taxpayers. This was received today at 2:46 p.m. and these are the collected comments of the Conservation Commission as communicated to me by the conservation agent, Dan Malo. Good afternoon, all. Conservation agent and commission comment on the PA 490 discussion. The town should formally adopt the PA 490 open space provisions through ordinance and include them in the POCD updates, which are in progress. The acreage thresholds should remain consistent with regional towns, with what regional towns' current practices are. Studies and a listing by the Connecticut Farm Bureau suggest that the current and proposed criteria is typical in towns that have adopted PA 490 open space. A map representing desired parcels or areas for inclusion may not be necessary. Excluding properties on a map that may be eligible could be problematic. I haven't located maps generated for preferred parcels or areas in comparison town POC. Regarding proposed language, land containing other structures such as outbuildings or those supporting recreational or agricultural use shall be included. This should perhaps read passive recreation. Adopting an all-inclusive interpretation of recreational will be problematic. Aside from aesthetic and environmental benefit, conservation of open space has real value in helping keep flow and control the cost of community services. Absent of permanent conservation easements, which the town should pursue, PA 490 is an effective and widely used incentive to keep perceived open space from development. If possible, can these recommendations be read into the record? Thank you for your work on this issue. All the best, Dan Malo, Conservation Agent. These are 4 duplicate letters from the Barrett family. That's Bernard, Lucille, William, and Lisa. To whom it may concern. I am writing to urge the members of the Town of Thompson Planning and Zoning Commission to complete the work on the open space classification for the Town of Thompson as originally intended by residents and the Thompson Planning Commission at the meeting of June 18th, 1979, by approving and moving forward in proper order of action the amendment to the POCD regarding Public Act 490 and open space as approved by the Agricultural Commission meeting of February 24th, 2022. The minutes of the June 18th, 1979 meeting clearly state residents' concern for the preservation of the environment in the town. Open space is a feature, not a flaw in the town of Thompson. The preservation of the historical New England character of Thompson deserves special consideration, and the amendment to the POCD regarding Public Act 490 and open space is an important tool to help us preserve the environment in the town that our fellow townspeople voted to approve at that meeting on June 18th, 1979. Please complete that task and work together to preserve the special charm of Thompson for future generations. And again, that's Bernard, Lucille, William, and Lisa Barrett. Is it Barrett?
It is, Barrett.
Bernard, Lucille, William, and Lisa, and apparently they pronounced their last name Barrett, not Barrett. And then the last one that I received was 6:42 this evening from Angela Offier via email. I am writing to express my support for the recommendation put forth by the Ag Commission regarding open space under PA 490 in the town of Thompson. I would like to see this approved without modification. And that is what I have received.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments at this time? Hearing none, item 6, approved minutes. 6A, January 24th, 2022, regular meeting minutes. Ms. Alsing.
I did a couple of things that I'd like to bring up about the minutes of this last meeting and something that I've kind of seen. With Gloria sitting in the back and taping these, I think maybe she's missing things because there was a comment that was made at the last meeting that was not put in the minutes. It was a very, in my opinion, important statement that was made. It was a statement made where the citizens did not have the right to speak. That was not put in the minutes of this packet. So my question is, did the recorder miss it or was it accidentally left out? But that is a statement that should be in the minutes because it is something that you could actually hear the gasps in the audience when it was said. I've actually had strangers come up to me in Webster, Mass. and ask me that. I had no clue who they were. They knew who I was and they had heard about it. So one, it needs to be put back into the minutes. And two, if there is a problem that she's not getting everything that's said, she should be at this table, not over in the back of us, because she's not getting the brunt of it. She should be at this table or at this end of the table so that she can get everything, because people come forward to speak. Without having that in the minutes, and I know a vote is enough yet, I'm not correcting those, accepting those minutes unless that statement is put back in, because it needs to be in there. It was a very important statement that was said. And if it is a problem because she's not hearing anything, then we need to move her up here.
It's recorded there. She
Everything
takes
is
it off.
Okay, so everything is recorded, then how come it wasn't put in the minutes of the meeting? That's the next question. Why was that omitted? If it was recorded and heard, why was it omitted and not put into the minutes?
Don't have an answer.
There is no answer. I can surmise a few things, but that needs to be put back into the minutes of this meeting, last month's meeting.
You like to make that, put that in?
I make a motion that that statement gets put into the January minutes of the meeting.
And could you just indicate where?
I want to say that it was on page 7, if I'm not mistaken. And again, not getting the packets in time, sometimes there's an awful lot. Page 7. Believe after old business, you go down, the commissioner's discussion of business format, took place changes, the town planner, citizens' comments. I believe it was in this section. And it was not put in.
So where would you like to add it?
It goes in. It is important for the commissioners to hear citizens' comments so they consider them going forward. Before the statement of Mr. Rice saying that he read an excerpt from the minutes of the last meeting regarding what Attorney Slater said. Somewhere in there, due to my recollection, it goes in there. It went in before that statement being read from Attorney Slater.
So, yeah, so what exact, I mean, so what I need, Ms. Halsey, is the language that needs to be, the language that needs to be inserted and
It is that publicly stated that the citizens do not have a right to speak.
before the sentence that reads John Rice read an excerpt.
Yes.
Motion has been made to amend the minutes of the January 24th, 2022 meeting to read, sorry, could you
The
repeat that?
citizens do not have the right to speak.
Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Mr. Williams.
Because if we're going to do the minutes, they have to be correct.
Discussion on the motion.
How do we verify?
Go back and listen to it. It's in, unless that's been taken out.
Taken out from where?
I don't know. That's why I just don't understand why I didn't get into the minutes.
I think it should spell it out exactly what's missing. Gloria could certainly check that out.
So then maybe we can table the accepting of these minutes until it is verified and looked at with the whole audience that heard that it was said. So I think, yeah, maybe we can just table this, with the acceptance of the minutes tonight.
Do you withdraw your
I
motion to amend?
withdraw the motion. I make a motion that we table the acceptance of the minutes until the next meeting. Then we can accept it then, and now we'll verify it.
Motion has been made to table the minutes of, or table the acceptance of the minutes of the January 24th meeting till next meeting. Is there a second? Mr. Hill seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes tables the acceptance, the next meeting, a no continues the process. Mr. Blackmore.
Randy Blackmer, yes.
Alvin Hill, yes.
James also, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Ogle, yes.
John Rice, yes.
Dave Pelkey, yes.
Ms. Orr, Levesque,
Kaiser, Levack, yes.
Mr. Lanky, my apologies.
That's okay. I'm fine with that. John B. Linky, yes.
Joseph Brody Brown, yes. Item 6B, January 31st, 2022 special meeting minutes, which were published to the web. Any discussion on the acceptance of those minutes? I will move the acceptance of the minutes of the January 31st special meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Blackmer. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes vote will approve, a no vote will not approve. Mr. Blackmer.
Randy Blackmer, yes.
Alvin Hill, yes.
James also, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Ogle, yes.
John Rice abstained, not in attendance.
Dave Pelkey abstained.
John Bielanky, yes.
Mr. Levack,
Abstained, I wasn't here.
thank you. And Joseph Prody Brown, yes. The minutes are approved. Item 6C, February 3rd, special meeting minutes. You see the web. This is the subcommittee on subdivision regulation meeting we have.
I'll make that motion, February 3rd.
I'll second it.
Mr. Lanky approves motions, the approval, Ms. Salcy seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, a yes vote will approve, a no vote will deny. Mr. Lanky,
John Bielanky, yes.
Dave Popolski abstain.
John Rice abstain.
Mike
Not in
Criddle abstain.
attendance.
Larry Williams, yes.
James also, yes.
Alvin Hill, yes.
Randy Blackmore, yes. Joseph Parodi Brown, yes. Ms. Ora Levack. I think we may have
I
lost
think
her.
we did lose her.
Those minutes are approved.
I'll let you know when she comes back.
Item 6D, February 10th, 2022, special meeting minutes. Again, this is the second meeting of the subcommittee of on subdivision regulation.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Salcy, seconded by Mr. Williams to approve the minutes of the February 10th meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes approves, no, not approved. Mr. Blackmer. Mr. Blackmer, yes.
Alvin Hill, yes.
James also, yes.
Larry Williams, yes. Mike Criddle abstain.
John Rice abstain.
Dave Popolski abstain.
John Bielanky, yes.
And Joseph Purdy Brown abstained. I was not present. Those minutes are approved. Item 7, applications, we have none. Item 8, applications received after agenda posted. We have none. Item 9, reports of officers and staff. 9A, the planner's reports. Ms. Penn.
Just updating on the progress of the subdivision regulations review. And to recap where we are, we went through over the last 8 to 10 months, a full review of the entire text and created a first draft of an amended text for the full document. We're now in the second version of that. We've been proceeding pretty well. I think those discussions have been very productive and substantive. We are continuing with weekly meetings until we get done with that creation of a completed second draft, at which point we will post it for public comment and then schedule a sort of an informal informational session so that people can ask, questions just on that topic. I think we are still on track to complete that draft by the end of March, which would be great because then we could bring it to the regular meeting of the full commission for some sort of more substantive points that need full commission discussion before creating that final draft to present to the public. So that's that. Next meeting for that is Wednesday of this week, 7 to 9 p.m. For anybody, a member of the public who is interested in attending, those are Zoom only because it's much more efficient for us to do that work online when we're all looking at the screen together. And that, I believe that agenda has already been posted. Is that correct? Yeah, posted online. So, and you can get the Zoom link there if you're interested in attending that and hearing what's going on there.
Thank
That's
you.
what I got.
They're
Mr.
also
Lee.
on the town website too.
What is currently on the town website is the first, the version 1 draft, because the version 2 draft is still in progress. So you certainly may look at that, read it, and provide comment to me via email. I keep an e-folder with all the comments received, so that if a pertinent topic comes up that the commission can address, we can raise it in those meetings. And also when we go into that final review of the final draft, what we did with the zoning regulations was I compiled a memo for any open comments that still remain, what those comments were, what probable responses might be, and The commission uses that for discussion. I don't see
She's
her.
having a hard time with the Wi-Fi.
Okay, until she comes in here, I can't let her
I
in.
know.
9B, ZEO memo.
Okay, on my memo, copy and paste gets best to me sometimes. I put the wrong date on it, left the wrong date on it. So it should be dated February 28th, 22. And I would, I know it's on the agenda, but I just want to give my personal thanks to Alvin, your commission member, Alvin Hill. He did an amazing job of putting together the booklet on state statute for all of our quick references. And as a staff member, I am always referencing the state statute. And this booklet will be so helpful in my research. Thank you, Alvin, for taking the time. Your copies are on there on the table there, so please take one before you leave. Joe has his as chairman, Randy has his as vice chairman. If you want to pass them out now, that's fine, but he did an excellent job. And actually, you know, again, I can just say he did an excellent job as a member who has to always refer to the statutes. The next item was the response to the citizens' comment on 12422. It is on my report because I am just making everybody aware that any of the research, et cetera, that was done on that was handed over to our chairman because when it's policy like that, it is the chairman's position to answer those type of comments. So I just had it on there because I wanted to make sure I reminded to say it. And my other comment is in response to an ad that was put in the Shopper's Guide on February 16, 2022. And I'd like to say, and this is 4 pages, everybody, so be patient with me, and I'm going to go very slow with it so everybody understands. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to give you copies of anything that you need. So as staff member, when I'm asked questions concerning the accuracy of the Thompson zoning regulation, I am responsible to address that information and explain compliance with the regulation. So under the agenda item, ZEO report, I am addressing the Shopper's Guide ad of February 16, 2022 concerning property owners' right to house file on their property and compliance with the amended districts as of 9/20/2020. What's this? 2, sorry about that. Amended zoning requirements, Article 4, Section 4. And that is a section that is in front of the districts, separating the districts. And that section has several things that they address that are generalized. And number 5 on that is household domestic violence. The regulation is a structure housing the 10 fowl. If you build a structure to house your 10 fowl, can I say chickens, guys? If zoning permits are required, regardless of size when an accessory structure is built. So the zoning permit is for the structure. Zoning permit fee for any size of structure is $100. $60 of the fee goes to the state of Connecticut. That is a state statute. Any fee that's collected in our office, $60 of that always goes to the state of Connecticut. The fee is a requirement for all structures being built regardless of the size or use of structure, such as equipment, tools, tool storage, garden shed, pool equipment, housing chickens, etc. All district boundaries set back for an accessory structure under 200 square feet is 5 feet, and that has changed from the previous regulations where it was 6 feet. Accessory structure over 200 square feet must comply with the respected district setbacks stated on the application. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, but I think that our districts now, it just requires a 20-foot in all our districts. You know, the RRA is a 20-foot setback.
For poultry,
Yeah,
for poultry.
well, for any accessory building, 20-foot setback.
Yes.
So I'm gonna repeat it simply. If you're housing 10 fowl in an accessory structure on 200 square feet and side and rear setback is 5 feet. Housing fowl in a structure of 200 or more square feet, then you have to comply with the respective district side and rear setback. And you need a zoning permit to build the accessory structure for the chicken, just as you would need a zoning permit, as I said, for any other structure. In all districts, the front setback for an accessory structure shall equal or exceed that of the primary structure. An existing primary structure that predates the amended regulations, the commission may waive the front setback requirement. B of this section, household domestic fowl. Amended regulations permit in all districts, there's 7 districts now, 10 fowl. No zoning permit is required to have 10 fowl on your property. Only need the zoning permit if you're building a structure for that 10 fowl. Roosters are not permitted in CRD, common residential district, DMRD, downtown mill rehabilitation district, LD Lake District, or any section of the Thompson Common Development District. I think that's what it is.
Thompson Corridor Development District.
Thompson Corridor Development District, sorry, where the lot size is a minimum of 4,500 square feet. When more than 10 birds is proposed, property owner must comply with the regulations in Article 4A, Section 4D, livestock. Each district, 7 districts, as I said, has a chart of permitted uses in that district. The following is the compliance requirement of each district when applying to house more than 10 birds. Housing agricultural livestock, non-swine, which is more than 10 fowl, boundary setbacks, front, side, and rear setback is 150 feet. So more than the 10, you have to have 150 feet setback. The following districts, existing or new use, require for agricultural livestock, which is the fowl is classified under, a permit commission site plan review. And that fee is $150. Again, 60 goes to the state. So those districts that you have to come to the commission for a permit with site plan review are the Rural Residential Agricultural District, the Business Development District, Downtown Rehabilitation District, the Thompson Corridor Development District, the Thompson Common Village District, and it states in our regulation, existing and new zoning permit, simple, which the fee is $60, goes to the state. The Common Residential District, over 10 fowl is not permitted, and the Lake District, over 10 fowl is not permitted. So understand that when an application is filed and heard by the Planning Commission, and the applicant complies with all the required regulations, according to state statute, chapter 124, 8-GI, a decision to deny or modify a site plan shall set forth the reason for such denial. The application is denied to have more than 10 chickens. The application is denied. The commission must have a compelling reason for denial to support the town of Thompson defense in an appeals court. Now, your previous regulation, the following is reference to livestock and regulations before the amendment. You had two districts, well, you had I think only 4 or 5 districts then. R80 and R40, which is now the Rural Residential Agriculture District. In those 2 districts, uses permitted as right was farm, horticultural, animal husbandry, limit 150 fowl, and forestry were permitted in R80 and R40, and that was uses permitted as right. Structures should not be closer than 150 feet to the boundary line or water course, which we carried that over to the new regulation. R20C commercial and I industrial farms, horticultural, animal husbandry, and forestry were not permitted in those 3 districts. So to sum up the previous regulations, if you had fowl in what was R80 and R40, and complied with the regulations that were in place up to 9/20/20, the amended regulations of 9/20/20, then your use is a non-conforming use. Housing fowl as other agricultural livestock was not permitted. Again, I'll repeat it, in R20C, commercial and industrial zone. Amended regulations now allows up to 10 fowl in all districts. 10 or more fowl are now permitted with commission site plan review. Again, I go to the districts they were permitted in. The simple permit, TCVD, and 10 or more fowl are not permitted in common residential district and lake. So in the article, he also addressed having to spend all this money to go to the zoning board of appeals. I think, there's 2 points on that. One was on fowl, and you can have up to 10 fowl, and you don't have to go to the zoning board of appeals. But if you want more than 10, then you have to apply for a site plan review with approval by the commission. So if the application for the 10 fowl, for more than 10 fowl is denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission because the applicant did not comply with the required regulations and cannot possibly comply with required regulations, the applicant does have the option of applying to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. And you can look online to see what those requirements are. The applicant may apply to the ZBA when the ZEO, which is me, denies a zoning permit to build a structure that it cannot meet the respective district setback. So basically, here's what I'm saying here. If they refuse your application for more than 10 chickens, they have to refuse it because you do not comply with the regulations. And if you can't comply with the regulations, then you go to the ZBA. If you comply with the regulations, it's very difficult for a board, commission to refuse your application to have more than 10 fowl. So all ZBA applications are required to hold a public hearing. Okay, the applicant may apply to the ZBA when the zoning enforcement officer denies a permit for a structure. Okay, said that. All ZBA applications are required to hold a public hearing. The fee is $335. The town cost of the public hearing is providing property notice signed to the applicant, which is $50, 3 legal ads, announcing the public hearing and then announcing the result is approximately $80, which comes to $240, and depending on the word content, it could be more. Again, the state fee is $60. All communications sent to the applicant by certified mail, sent by the applicant to the people that are on their boundaries. Registered mail, generally 2 notices are sent. First step letter to prepare for the applicant for the public hearing and notification of the action of the public hearing after the public hearing. And that costs around $6 to $8 per mailing. So requirements for the process of the ZB applications are required by state statute 124.870. And Anything else here? Okay. I do, sorry. I understand that this is a detailed review, but zoning has many details to compliance. This can, you know, I'm sure that it's going through your head, this article, that article, 10 files, 150 files. It's very confusing. It's very, you have to look at it very carefully. As your staff member, it's my responsibility to answer your questions, concerns, application procedures, zoning permits, et cetera, according to the regulations. For future concerns and questions, I am asking those who are listening that are going to be addressed in a public forum on any part of the newly adopted regulations, I'm asking the public to come and visit us, talk to us, find out if what you're going to publish is accurate according to our regulations. Where our doors are open, you know, obviously my time is part-time, but you call me, make an appointment. And, you know, we are more than happy to explain the accuracy of what you're going to get across to the public so that you don't confuse the public. So I will defer to the chairman of the P&Z to address the published ad comment stating the P&Z using Zoom meetings under the cover of COVID took away your right to raise any kind of barnyard or waterfowl. But before I turn it over to Joe, as a staff member, I know that the PC meetings, regular meetings, and subcommittee meetings, the CBA meetings were conducted on Zoom in compliance with the executive orders that were put into place for the safety of the public, commission members, and staff. So I hand it over to you to make a comment on, if you want to make a comment on that last thing.
All right, thank you, Cindy. And I think you said it. We were, we were complying with state meeting guidance at the time. Thank you.
And it was open to the public to go onto the Zoom meetings. Do staff members have any questions? Excuse me, P&Z members have any questions?
Cindy, just a comment I have under that ZBA application. The fee is $335, and the way you have it spelled out here, it costs the town $366.
I know.
So we're
I thought I would
so
leave
we're
that.
losing $31 every time somebody goes to the ZBA.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Too. You know, you have to publicize it. That was one of the biggest
That's for
expenses
ZBA.
for the ZBA. Okay. And say
You don't
that-
have to publicize it if you're having a site plan review.
Yeah, this is
approval
for,
application.
this is for it. My question is that, you know, you might have several things that are coming in. Are those all allowed in the same ad, or do these have to be separate ads for each situation? So say 5 people come in,
Right,
all 5 of those things have to be publicized, correct?
yes.
Okay, so would all 5 of those things be able to be put into the same ad, or do they get put in separate ads?
That's Gloria, she does the ads for us.
So if 5 people come in and all, what, you know, whatever they're dealing with, they have to be publicized. Okay.
Each public hearing has to be noticed separate.
Okay, but I mean, okay, so do you have, so, okay, and I'm just trying to understand this. So you're gonna have a public hearing. You have 5 situations that are coming in. You hold 5 separate public meetings, or can you do them all in the
You
same
can do them all
night?
at the same day.
Okay,
Right,
so
just,
my question is, can they all be put in the same ad? I'm just
no,
trying to
they
get
all have to be noticed separate as separate items.
separate ads, but they cannot be in the same, like Charlie's gonna do this, George is gonna do this, it all is separate. Charlie's doing this
Different
line,
yeah.
Charlie, Sally's, okay, all right, that, no, just my clarification.
Verbiage is
on
all
that.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm, yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hull. You're welcome.
thank you.
And Cindy,
Yes.
building over 200 square feet, you can build it.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I know, but I'm not, I know. I would tell them that when they come in, but generally they go to the building office. The building office is the one that fills out the zoning permit upstairs. And then I come up and I sign off as I check the site plans, I check the setbacks, I check whatever has to be checked, I sign off on it, and then I sign off on the zoning permit upstairs. For the 200 square feet and under, they generally come into our office if they're aware they have to do the 200 square foot. A lot of people aren't, but I believe I put that in the last, I did a report on that last meeting. And I also put that into the Thompson newsletter. You know, the quality, you know, what you have to do to get a permit for an accessory building.
I have one other question.
Yes,
Is that
sure.
okay? Okay, so the structure, housing 10 foul, and no matter what size, if you're housing foul, you have to get a permit.
You have to get a permit for the structure.
For the, yes, that's what I'm not talking
Yes.
about the chickens.
Right.
So I have 10 chickens and I'm gonna squash them into a 12 by 12 box. I still have to get a permit?
Is it a box that's cemented to the ground?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would have to get a permit for that?
If it's a structure, yeah.
Okay, that answers that. So no matter what the size is, it has to have the permit, okay?
And I guess I just want to say one final thing for the gentleman right there that has had the question earlier. If you had chickens and you were complied, if you had filed and you complied with the zoning regulations for 920, you were grandfathered. So,
There was no register.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just one minor correction to what you had. On the previous regulation, you had the following is reference to livestock and regulations before amended regulations of 9/20/22. It's 21.
2020.
21 or 20?
21.
Should be 2020.
1.
20,
Mhm.
20, okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Okay, I got a question. I'm not up on, I know the regulations have been changed and they've been changed. Three regulations ago, how many chickens could you have? You know, when did the people start getting regulated on how many birds? they
So
could
it
have?
was what Cindy said, in several of the districts, no fowl were allowed at all. In the RA 40 and the RA 80 was referenced in the livestock
Oh,
section.
the one that-
Or 20 was. Yeah, 20 didn't allow it.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Of them.
80 did.
R40 and R80 did
Before,
before.
it was 120.
Before the new regulation,
Yeah, so when they were only allowed in the RA 40 and the RA
You could
80,
have up to 150
150,
birds.
yes. What?
you can have 10 in all
You
districts.
can have 10
Yeah,
and all,
100, you
yeah,
got-
you can have 10.
You got cut back by 140 birds.
Yeah.
And then
Minimum.
two, just
No, well,
No.
no. So the 10 are allowed in all districts. So that's an extension, right? There were many districts where no fowl were allowed. So the 10 in some of those districts is an extension. In the RRAD, which encompasses much of what was the RA 40 and the RA 80, it is now, what do you need a site plan for?
Site plan review
Over 10.
over 10, and that
But-
costs $150 to do that.
And
But
that's
it
the
is allowed.
rural agricultural area, and I mean, you could have 100 acres, you still have to go in and get that, if you're gonna have over 10. Okay,
Ms. Penn.
okay.
If I may. So when those zoning amendments, when those amendments to the zoning regulations, in other words, the overhaul was done, it was clear that we were trying to address the rights of all people to have household chickens at all. Now, you could make the argument, and I think it's a totally reasonable argument, that we could have written it better and perhaps said that in certain districts, the level is this, and certain districts, the level is that for your as of right birds. But as we frequently point out here, this commission has committed to reviewing its regulations every year so that we make sure that if something isn't behaving in the regulations the way we intended it to and wanted it to, that we can continually update them, right? So that it's a living document. So I would suggest if this is an issue that the commission would like to revisit for this year's update, which we're generally doing around September, then we can have that discussion. And I would suggest that we could do that because we have so many sort of big things going on right now, to loosely plan on that for our April meeting, for me and Cindy to prepare a memo for the issues we think could use a little massaging in the current iteration of the zoning regulations, and then we can get to that.
And And, you know, and also in light of that, if any of the concerned homeowners have suggestions, please come into our office and give us suggestions. I have copies of my report right here. If anybody wants to pick it up and read it, I know it's hard to comprehend things and come to reading it. Reports are here. If you have questions on it, just come into the office and give us some recommendations of what you'd like to see. If you don't think that what we did is fair to all the homeowners, property owners.
What are your office hours? 'Cause
My office hours are generally Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 9 to 3. During those hours, sometimes I have to go on site plans. That's why I say it's good to call so that we can make an appointment. But most of the time I'm here on those days. Sometimes I'm here on Tuesdays.
If somebody calls it, I mean, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of people in town that work, and those hours are not conducive to somebody that works to be able to come in and talk to you. So if somebody called and made an appointment, would you come in on a special day at 6 o'clock at night so you can meet with them?
Well, I think pretty much everybody knows that I make myself available and
Okay.
accessible to.
Okay,
to
no, I'm
the
just putting that
public
out
here.
there so somebody can do that.
Yeah.
And
That-
I will also remind people that I am full-time. My office hours are Monday through Friday, essentially town hall hours, but generally 8:30 to 4, except on Fridays when we close at 2. And the most efficient way, especially if you do have difficulty, you know, physically coming in or making a call, is to email either Cindy or me directly. And we keep a record of all comments received like that, so.
In fact, I'll go get my card.
Any other questions for Cindy? Thank you, everyone. Item 9C, Town of Thompson Budget Report, January 2022.
Cindy, don't run away.
Okay.
On the budget, the office supplies, you already expended all the money we have, so I don't know what all that is, but you're all done for the
Yeah,
year
yeah.
till June, okay?
I know, yeah.
All right,
Pretty well,
other than that, Mr. Chairman, we're all set.
we'll just go around the other office and type stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. And item 9D, updated Planning and Zoning Commission members list. Item 10, correspondence. We have these 8 items. Any questions about any of them? Let's see, the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agencies annual conference registration. Cindy's run away, but I would assume usually they pair that with a workshop, right, which I think would likely count for the those hours that are required.
March 22nd.
March, yeah.
And that-
Is it, and then there's also the Freedom of Information.
Yeah, that one, that will go towards our required also, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you still on correspondence?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, the Freedom of Information is March 22nd. The CFPZA,
Oh,
yeah, no, the CFPZA event, Cindy.
Oh, right.
Do they have a workshop with that this year? I know
No,
they have
that's
in the
not a
past.
workshop, that's a,
dinner?
It's a dinner, but in the past they
Dinner.
paired it with
They have a speaker that, I'm not sure whether they qualifies as one of the.
I can check. Anybody's interested in going, we'll check.
What is it?
That's actually March 24th, not the 22nd.
Oh,
The
okay.
Freedom of Information Act is the 22nd year. The
Oh, yeah, that's on
CFPZ,
the-
yeah,
on
that's
the-
later on, yeah.
And that's in person for the freedom of
Yes.
information on this one, February.
That's on,
was
that's on,
Zoom.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
okay.
CFPZA conference.
is it a yearly dinner?
Part of the evening's program will be a presentation discussing compliance with the 2021 legislative agenda. So I'm not sure if that would count as part of our hours.
I don't think it would.
You can find that out for us, Cindy.
Yeah, wasn't listed, so.
Sure, that's when they usually hold down the aquifer.
It is at the Aquifer, yeah.
I don't think that one there will go towards the The training thing.
Mommy, and you don't feed us and then give us the hours?
Well, there is, again, it's not just the dinner. There is a workshop portion that I'm referring to.
I'll tell you.
Cindy, if you would be able to check to see
I will
if
check,
that.
it. I did not even read it, because every year you guys ignore it, so. I didn't
I
even
would
read
say-
it.
That's the one.
The first year that I worked here, the first 6 months or so, I went to a lot of annual conferences. Some of them were all day, and I think I put on 10 pounds in conference winning. And there were lots of
You would
speakers.
have gone to those ones. That's the award. That's
Yeah,
the
that's,
dinner.
yeah, you get that
that
certificate for
you-
X
you put in
amount
a
of
name
years.
and somebody who's
But it's a
gone.
nice thing. They have some good speakers. You do.
Okay. Item 11, signing of Mylars. There are none. Item 12, old business bylaws amendment.
I gave you, bylaws, but I made a mistake in the opening of it. I added something that should not have been added. So I'm giving you new copies. There's no action to be taken. I'm just giving you new copies. Just throw away your old.
Dispose of your old copy. Item, oh wait, I think this is Cindy as well, so I'm gonna wait for her.
They're the ones that don't.
New copies. A new copy of it, so just throw it away. Just.
Thank you.
You are. There you are.
And then you're up, Cindy, item 12, land use training guidelines.
So I gave you the flyer for the workshop that's gonna be here. I think it's well worth coming. I checked to make sure it was one that it applied to one of your requirements from state legislative from last year. And those workshops, I'm even gonna attend again. Those workshops are always great, especially on these free movement. Yeah. Okay, I have it. I'll give you a copy. right here.
And what day is that, Cindy?
Tuesday, March 22nd.
At what time?
6, I think it was.
6 o'clock is correct.
That's March 22nd, you said?
You got the Zoom to it, or is it?
I do have.
No, there was a Zoom one in February, earlier this month.
Yeah,
This is
email
in
me.
person.
Does anybody need a copy
No,
of this
it's
while
here
I'm
in town
doing it?
Oh, it's gonna be at the town hall, okay.
I'll give you.
I should have gotten it in the packet, but I mean, I only had.
Item
That's the one
13,
that's gonna come.
the Freedom of Information Act will count. Item 13A. This item 13, new business, 13A, Zero County Road, Rich Audette, preliminary discussion of multi-housing. The county home road,
Here.
Yes, Zero County Home.
county home road.
Yep.
yeah.
Yes, I apologize for that.
So I'm Rich Audette, owner of RTA Builders in Thompson, Connecticut. And have a pretty interesting development we're looking at right now on County Home Road. It's 12 different condos, all detached. Beautiful wooded area. We'd have a community room. I'll actually show you the board over here. We'd have, they're all one bedrooms.
Joe, I don't want to interrupt you, but you might just want to explain that this is just a preliminary discussion.
Yes,
You can't
preliminary
comment
discussion of multi-housing.
on it, and audience. You can move it down, Rich.
So I have the surveyor draw this up, and it's, so what it is, the last couple of years, I've been trying to come up with something as a builder that would, take care of, the high expenses of housing now, people downsizing, go a little smaller, beautiful, wooded areas with walking trails, as you can see in this, all these shaded areas here is all open space. So we have 15 acres of open space out of 25 acres on the whole property. And this on County Home Road is Quinnetisset sits over on this side. You got Reeves Pond here. And you've got the Corny on the other side of the road. So what we're trying to do is just, just trying to come up with a development that would, help the community, more taxes coming in. We'd have, they're all gonna be 1 bedroom with an office, about 1,000 square feet on a slab. We have, it's gonna be radiant floor heating, Mitsubishi split units. Every single one of them will get their own septic system and we'll have a couple shared wells. One of the reasons for the 12 units and only 1 bedroom is once you go past 25 people, you have to have the waterworks take over it. So it's very expensive. So we didn't want to go down to 8, so we kept 12 units. So that would be, that would hopefully, enough money could go towards the community building, the property, the general upkeep so that the HOA fees could be low. And that was the one thing that we're able to fit into was the condo units. So, we couldn't just have a bunch of buildings for rent or for sale without having a whole bunch of subdivisions. So this is my idea, just a concept, and just wanted to bring it before you all and see what you have to say.
What I would like to say on this is that after discussion discussing with staff as to how they could bring it to the Planning and Zoning Commission under what regulations. So what we told them was Article 4, zoning district, Section 4, general provisions for all districts shared driveway, which each individual unit would have a shared driveway. And then we went to Article 4A in rural residential agriculture district, Section 2, table of permitted uses, number 19, which says any other uses reasonably related to the intended purpose of this district is determined by the commission, and that would require a special permit. And then we have the definitions of dwelling, condos, a building or group of buildings in which dwelling units, offices, or floor area are owned individually. Structure, common areas, and facilities are owned by all the owners on proportional and divided basis, and condos may be arranged as apartments, townhouses, or attached dwellings. So that's what we recommended that he apply for the special permit under those regulations.
As a special permit would require a
Right.
public hearing.
Yeah, public hearing, the whole 9 yards. Rich knows that, it's preliminary, just, introduction to all of you and get a feel of it.
No decisions being made tonight.
No decisions being made tonight.
Questions? Yeah, this house.
Proposed cost for each individual.
We're working on that right now. Obviously, this is preliminary, so we're just getting everything. But we're hoping around 250, 260 type of thing.
And, okay, so you said approximately 1,000 square feet,
1,000 square feet.
and then there'll be an HOA fee on top of that.
Yes, so that's what we're trying to keep down. That's over the 12 buildings. We have the community center will have a exercise facility in it. You'll have, a couple barbecue pits around there. You've got the walking trails going around, picnic areas. When you go into this place, it's just absolutely beautiful. Trees everywhere, very selective cut we're gonna do. And again, most of it's gonna be open space in that whole area. You really don't even see it from the road. You go up the hill.
Yeah, the area.
Yeah.
area.
So we would actually be paving the first 100 feet coming up the hill. It's not even a 10% grade. After that would be all like a macadam type of milling. Packs down really well, but we kind of save the money on having to put all the drain systems in and all the pavement. So we're trying to keep it, as feasible as possible. Right, exactly, yeah.
You say radiant floor heat.
Yep. Gas,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be showing you where the units.
yes.
Mr. Ryan,
I have a question. The open space, now, is the HOA gonna have that whole property?
Yes, so
So we'll still be getting, the town will still be getting taxes on the 25 acres.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I would imagine so.
Okay, you own the 25 acres.
Yeah, so that's in the process right now, trying to figure out if it's all gonna work. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Rice?
Has that land been subdivided before? Is that all just a
It
new
has,
parcel?
yep, it has. Quintus had bought this part a few years back. We've got a couple houses here. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 different parcels were taken off of that parcel throughout the years.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Penn?
Although the gentleman is not actually proposing the subdivision here, I just want to put this, little bug in you guys' ears as we're considering the subdivision regulations, that some of that stuff, the issues that come up for conservation subdivisions, where you're trying to preserve more open space by having more compact groupings of housing. This is actually a great illustration for that. It just doesn't happen to be subdivided into the mini lots. So, and if you look at those links that I sent you over the weekend, just stuck at home doing a lot of online research. That first one also shows a lot of sort of alternate layouts and how those things can work. Because I think what we've discovered is that, I mean, not just what we've discovered, I think what we've known all along is that there is a high priority on maintaining as much of the integrity of the landscape as we can create. And so he says 15 out of 25 acres, that's 60% of this parcel put aside in open space, which is well more than our subdivision regulations require. So that's, I think, the kind of thoughtful planning that we'd like to see. And again, just something to consider as we move forward with that other project, the kinds of possibilities that are open.
I was wondering about the set aside land. I thought like on with the Donovan Drive with the town's getting, 19 acres out over there. So I didn't know if that property there, where we're getting the extra property or if we're still gonna get taxes on it.
Well, so far, he's not proposing this, and correct me if I'm wrong, as giving the land to the town. The land is a part of the
Right,
development.
that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so it'll be recreational use, right?
Right, because there is some subdivisions that the builders donate, give back to them. So
I wasn't
that's-
aware.
That's why I was wondering.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, but we would be open to something like that, for sure.
So you have no, I mean, right now, this is the plan here with what you say, 12?
Yes.
Yes, 12. You're not looking in the future to build on those acreage.
Absolutely not.
Okay. You get that in writing?
Right, yes. So how does the approval or non-approval process work from here? I wasn't really sure of that.
Yeah, so you sit down and again with Cindy a little bit, but yeah, you would make an application because this would be an application for a special permit. We would, when we receive the application, we would set a date for a public hearing at the next month's regular meeting. We will hold a public hearing.
2-month process. Once you have your application in.
Mr. Chair, is that any of that been perked or anything yet, or you just that preliminary where you just kind of got a conceptual layout? Yeah, so from, after approval, we'd start doing test pits and finding out if it's even, doable.
As a permit?
Right. So after we find out if we can do it, we'll go that route. But until then, we don't really know what we're looking at for costs. That's why it's hard to say what a number would be for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Odell. Item 13B, waiver requests 48 Logee Road, accessory structure in front of primary structure.
Have copies of that in your packet. And oh, okay, sorry. 42.
My apologies. 42 Logee Road.
And you want to copy here.
No.
I'm on the lake, on Logee Road, there's a private road, house is built. 5. like very close to the lake. You can see the picture of the horseshoe driveway. Just want to build a garage right off the horseshoe driveway, drive in, out. Further away from the lake, get a big slope going down. Don't have to cut into that hill, don't have to worry about the erosion, nice flat area. Have my setback.
You got this, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm looking at.
It'll end up being a pole barn. I'll build myself. Yeah. Yeah, 6x8.
So, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Poplawski.
You're gonna leave your existing driveway that goes up around, looks like behind the proposed addition too? Is that gonna stay?
I don't, the picture you're looking, which one are they looking at?
Cindy, can you just show them this one? The hand-drawn, kind of on the plot plan?
Yeah, so that's a picture on there. The driveway's not even close to it, so,
Well, he's got it, right?
yeah. I can show.
The driveway goes up. Okay.
Yeah, there was like the overhead shot of the driveway.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to drive by there. It just, I see the proposed addition and it looked like the driveway went, well, I see the garage, yeah.
Driveway step over there.
But see how, yeah. So how the driveway goes around and he's got it, you know what I mean? I don't understand it.
All right, so
You
here,
building that or is that already?
No.
This is existing. This is existing.
Okay. Oh, all right. I thought, see, it said proposed.
Oh, yeah, that was, because I got a, that was when they built the thing. But the,
Okay.
here's my driveway, here's the house. Out on the road.
Yeah.
It was done with highway.
Okay.
Yeah, so
so it's coming right off the home.
Okay.
You're coming off the tail end of the
That's
horse.
it, I just want to be able to swing in and stay away from the lake. and- Right.
Yeah.
I can't go down to the lake and I gotta.
No, we specifically changed it so that you guys could do that, so you wouldn't have to send it to
This is the
What's in there?
proposed
It's in there.
over here in
the.
this corner.
That was a change we made.
You know the plans I got from the town, so that, yeah, it's gonna be in that corner. So I can show you this, make it easy. So, seems like horseshoe here, and that's my car. We can draw on it, so. Here's the driveway. And the garage is over there. So you're gonna pull in, and you go into the garage, back onto the garage.
You're on the other side of the lake. You're not on the lake.
With your lake way here, I'd wanna be way from the lake, I'd wanna be close to the private road. Way up at the top, front of my house, like. Special.
Yeah, yeah.
Waiver.
Are there any
Waiver.
questions for Mr. Stan?
Cindy, all these setbacks are good?
We're figuring that out. I have to go out there, and if the setbacks aren't good, then he's gonna go to the CBA.
I see 20, I see 10, 10, 10.
Right,
20.
there's some things that we have to work out
Tweak it a
within the
little bit.
discussion. So I said, we have time for that, let's just get the waiver done, and then if we have to go for a CBA, we'll work on that next week.
Good, huh?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Stan? Okay, or for Ms. Dunn?
Need a motion to.
It would be, yeah, correct.
I'll make a motion that we approve that waiver.
Mr. Williams moves, Mr. Poplawski seconds to approve the waiver request for 42 Logee Road for the accessory structure in front of the primary structure.
By what, the regulation?
Here, you go, here.
Oh,
So
I'm gonna read right here.
this is based on the Article 4G.
You need my glasses.
Section
Mr. Chair?
3, no, thank you. So Article 4G, Section 3. Okay, Where there is an existing primary structure that predates the adoption of these regulations, the commission may waive the front setback requirement based on the physical characteristics of the site.
It has to do with no structures in front of the residential.
I did just read one sentence. I mean, it may have been the other sentence. Sorry, I thought I was reading the most germane sentence.
It's in my memo where there's an existing structure.
Yeah. I read the right thing, Mr. Rice. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a yes vote will approve the waiver, a no vote will reject the waiver. Mr. Blackmer.
Randy Blackmore, yes.
Mr. Hill.
Alvin Hill, yes.
James Salty, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Kruger, yes.
John Rice, yes.
Dave Kulowski, yes.
John B. Linky, yes.
Zora Levak,
Yeah, Kais or Levack, yes.
Joseph Brody Brown, yes. Thank you, Mr. Stan. Item 13C, state regulation, booklet compiled by Planning and Zoning Commission member Alvin Hill. Cindy's already mentioned it. I know this side hasn't gotten theirs yet. Make sure you don't forget it on the way out. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Thank you. Do you want to come in and give my students a research lessons class, Mr. Hill? I think that would be helpful.
Joe, I've got something else to pass out to the zoning commission members, is the new amendment, so just pass it around and each one take a copy.
So that's a new cover sheet showing the date that the amendment that we voted on last month was official, which was adding that omitted line in the solar table of uses for the Lake District. So it's replace your cover page and replace one page in the solar vote. Article 5A, Section 5 or something.
Thank you. Item 13D, Freedom of Information Workshop. We discussed that. That is Thursday, March 20. No, I lied. That is Tuesday, March 22nd, here at 6 o'clock. And make sure you register for that with the Selectman's office.
For the, with the selectman's office?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that information is on that sheet.
That does count toward
That counts.
requirement.
For the
Yeah.
requirement.
Yes, I checked.
Item 13E.
Give me a couple of minutes to pass it around to them, please, Joe.
Thank you.
You have this?
This is just a cover page, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and then
Yeah,
the
here's
page that actually has the changes here.
Just take one of these. Well, it's kind of hard if you looked at.
It was only one change that was voted on in January.
You are?
Thank you.
You are, Randy. This is coming up next.
That's it. Yeah, I'll put that right here for now, and then I'll put it in.
You are?
That's true.
What's that?
You gonna grab Santos some?
I'll get him one.
We'll be back Wednesday, Key West. So you have to rub it in.
There you are.
Okay, so this is item 13E, discussion of PA 490 open space language for the plan of conservation and development. This is the language that was sent to us from the meeting of the Ag Commission.
Mr. Chairman, may I recommend that I read the full text into the minute?
Yes, please.
Oh, I see what I did here. So this is proposed language for section 12.7, 2022 amendments to the POCD regarding Public Act 490 and open space. In the state of Connecticut, Public Act 490, PA 490, and its related statutes CGS 7-131C and 12-107A to 12-107E enable municipalities to reduce the tax assessment on land that is classified as farmland, forest land, or open space land. Recognition of the farmland and forest land classifications is mandatory for all Connecticut municipalities. Acceptance of the open space classification of PA 490 is left to the discretion of individual towns and requires the completion of certain actions to formalize participation. Neither the reduced tax assessment nor the classification of open space afforded by PA 490 is permanent. Rather, there is a minimum enrollment period of 10 years during which the designated parcel must remain undeveloped or risk substantial financial penalties. Enrollment runs with the owner, not with the land. Therefore, with each change of ownership, classification must be sought again by any new owner. The first step in the process to adopt the PA 490 open space classification is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend land within the town for preservation as open space within the town's plan of conservation and development. This amendment to the POCD is intended to fulfill that requirement. In considering the areas of Thompson which may be most appropriate for open space tax assessment, it is necessary to take into account documentation from June of 1979, which supports the town's intention at that time to adopt the open space classification. Meeting minutes from the 18th June 1979 meeting of the Thompson Planning Commission show the following. Discussion of lot size and minimum area for open space when less than 25 acres are involved. In order to prevent forced sale of land the commission adopts as part of their plan of development for the town a statement which declares those tracts in excess of a given acreage and unbuilt on or undeveloped to be critical to the preservation of the environment in the town. This action will enable those landowners who are not eligible for either the farm or forest use assessment to be eligible for a lower assessment on their land. Motion made by Bruce Seeger, seconded by Donald Hayes, to set the minimum area for open space in the town of Thompson at 3 acres. Motion carried. And just as a footnote, at the time, the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission were separate bodies in the town of Thompson, which is why it refers to the Planning Commission only. While PA 490 is not specifically referenced in the minutes, the language is sufficiently similar to that of CGS 12-107 to indicate that the intention of the Planning Commission was to adopt the open space classification for Thompson. However, the additional requirements for adoption do not appear to have followed. The proper order of action following approval by the Commission is for the Board of Selectmen to approve the areas recommended for open space by the Commission. Then an open space assessment ordinance must be written and approved by the town meeting. As of January 2022, no such ordinance is found in any of the town's records. There is some question as to whether the statutes at the time required the approval of the Board of Selectmen and the adoption of the ordinance. Therefore, the assessor has allowed past enrollees to continue their participation in the program in order to offer enrollment to new applicants going forward. Taking all of the above information into account,
In order to offer enrollment to new applications going forward, the town must take steps.
thank you. Let me go back.
Zero.
Can you wait, please?
You were fine just into the top of the second page.
Okay. In order to offer enrollment to the new applicants going forward, the town must take steps to be in compliance with the current statutory requirements. Taking all of the above information into account, the Planning and Zoning Commission for the town of Thompson therefore makes the following recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. In order to reduce the financial pressure to sell land and to incentivize the preservation of open space within the town of Thompson, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends the adoption of the open space classification of PA 490 with the following criteria. Land in all zoning districts of Thompson is eligible for consideration. The minimum area eligible for classification as open space shall be 3 acres of vacant or undeveloped land as described below. In the town of Thompson, the following land types shall be eligible for the open space classification. Any acreage within a parcel which does not contain a residential dwelling or a commercial building. In cases where a parcel includes portions which contain a residential dwelling or commercial building, the 3-acre minimum shall be land in excess of any portion containing such a structure. That portion shall be calculated at a minimum as the area of the single building lot within the given zoning district. In cases where the calculated area of the specified building or buildings exceed that of a single building lot, the area excluded from the open space designation shall not exceed the actual area occupied by the building. Open space shall not include residential dwellings or commercial buildings. Land containing other structures, such as outbuildings or those supporting recreational or agricultural use, shall be included in open space. Land set aside under the open space requirements for a subdivision or a conservation subdivision shall not be eligible for enrollment in PA 490. Such land is to be preserved permanently as open space as described in the subdivision regulations of the town of Thompson. And just for clarity, the background information has never been in question, so that is presented up here unmodified by the Agriculture Commission. And those last bullet points for the criteria are what was passed up to this commission by the Agriculture Commission following their meeting last Thursday.
With that, I'm sorry, just so everything beginning land in or
Everything beginning
in order to
in
reduce?
order to reduce the
Okay.
financial, although that's
Thank you.
actually the same as mine too. So it's really the bullet points.
Thank you. Any discussion on the commission?
You wanna go on commission first, or?
So it's 13E is discussion of open space language. Item 14 is citizens' comments. And then item 15 is possible action. Ms. House.
So what you just read is the way 79, the way it was written, correct? And this is, well, no, sort of is not, yes, it is, or what? Why, my question is that I feel it ain't broke. Why are we trying to fix it and change it? Have there been any problems since 1979? I feel that, possibly there was, an oversight on the town's part or whoever's part, that this did not go through properly the way it should have gone through. It isn't broken. Why are we trying to fix it? Why are we trying to make changes to it? When Nichols herself has said, take it as it is, do not change it. The Ag Committee, the same thing, take it as it is, do not change it. My feelings are that we follow their recommendations. Have there been any problems in town with this open space thing? Have there been any things that have come forward that would require it to be changed and altered? Do what is right for the citizens that are in this program. Don't change it. Don't change the words. Accept it the way it is, the way it was. I see, I see what you've put here, Mr. Alvin. Passive recreational areas. No, I don't want to see any of the words changed. It's not broken. And we need to do what is right for the people of this town. They have followed this since 1979. And as far as I understand, there's no issue.
Mr. Chairman, I can respond to the language of 1979.
I'm going to go to Mr. Rice. I'm going to go to Mr. Rice.
Is that the reason we're correcting this, because we don't meet the requirements currently of PA 490.
Well,
The requirements is that it has to be in the POCD, okay, with the plan of conservation and development. And also it has to go through the steps of the Planning and Zoning Commission and approved by the Board of Selectmen. Okay, and that hasn't been done. Is that anything that's been previously in open space is going to continue to be in open space until we make any corrections. My suggestion is that let's start with number one, get that part of that, saying that we're accepting PA 490 into the plan of conservation. That's our first step that we have to do. And my suggestion after that is to sit down with the Agricultural Commission, the assessor especially, because I think he has a big input of the pros and cons of doing that, and then come up with a final piece of legislation and then bring it to a public hearing.
Okay, and I understand what you're saying, but when you have the recommendation of Joan Nichols, who is the director of the Connecticut Farm Bureau, who is recommending that we take it as it is and not change it. When you have others that have come forward and don't change it, put it into play the way it is. Why do you have to make changes to it?
Can you read that part that she says that in that meeting?
I don't actually have that part with me. I did not have that, but she recommended that. This was at the first public meeting, I understand, where she was here. Then you have the Ag Commission that it said to put it the way it is, not to change anything. You've heard what the citizens of the town have been saying, all the letters that came in.
Did you read the minutes of the two meetings the Ag Commission had? With,
No, I did
with
not
her?
read those meetings,
So-
Mr. Rice,
so you-
because I don't get the meetings but 2 days, minutes before, 2 days before I get a meeting.
It's on the
That's
website. If you had the initiative, if you went on the.
Mr. Rice, Mr. Blackmer.
Joan's recommendation was not to change the 3 acres. We're not changing the way that that'll be handled in the town, except that we're making it legal. So you're blowing a lot of smoke about
No,
something that doesn't matter.
no,
Yes,
I've
you
gotten
are.
information, I've gotten the correct information that she has recommended that this be put in play as it stood in 1979.
It's real
Miss-
close
yeah,
to
I'm
what
just
we
gonna-
have.
I'm
Okay,
gonna get, let Ms. Penn weigh in and then Mr. Rice.
Okay, so I'm going to respond first to whether this is the same language as 1979. What I read from the minutes of June of 1979 is the language. All it is to set the minimum area for open space in the town of Thompson at 3 acres. There are no criteria described. So what I would say is that the Agriculture Commission passed up a set of bullet points that they believed fulfilled that intent. But that simple statement to set the minimum area of open space for town in the town of Thompson at 3 acres is not sufficient to set criteria. So some criteria must be established. And I will also echo what Randy said, because I had conversations, not just in the meeting, but following up the meeting to clarify with Joan her intent. And Joan Nichols advised very strongly that the first 2 bullet points that were read, land in all zoning districts of Thompson is eligible for consideration, and the minimum area eligible for classification shall be 3 acres. Those were the 2 items that she was very insistent we should follow that precedent because of the complications. The other criteria, she has not seen the Agriculture Commission's bullet points. She's only seen my original ones, and she did approve those, but her main concern in terms of the continuation was those 2 items, all districts being eligible and 3 acres. And to give the people who are new to this a little context there, the reason that was important to establish is because if we were writing this from 0 flat, nobody had ever done this before, I would not have proposed all districts in town because there are some districts in town that we have targeted for development. The Business Development District, the district we're sitting in, and the Downtown Mill Rehabilitation District, and parts of what we call the Thompson Corridor Development District. The Department of Transportation considers an urbanized area, which is where we want to concentrate economic and business development. That would have been my preference. And that's how I first approached the discussion guide. But based on the precedent, and when I started to map out where all the parcels that are currently approved for open space are, it became apparent that that wasn't going to fly. And then just one more statement, and then please, Mr. Rice, I just want to let you guys know that Paul is here in the audience you want comment from the assessor.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
I was just trying to address what you were saying, it's paraphrasing what you thought was, I was reading the minutes, and that's what she indicated, is that looking at the meeting of back in, what is it, 79,
Yeah.
they suggested that 3 acres and that other part, that first section, you said, that's all she said that she approved at that meeting. She didn't
Okay, so
approve,
I'm
she
getting,
didn't approve all this other stuff that you're saying, okay?
Okay, and I'm going to ask the assessor to weigh in.
Hi, Paul Hopkins, the assessor. Joan did talk about how we should keep this the same. Unfortunately, after reading the new language clearly, there's some substantial changes. So in the original 1979 determination, they were only talking about parcels under 25 acres. That's one thing. The new language encompasses every parcel across town, regardless of size. And two, in the original 1979 write-up, they talked specifically about undeveloped land. In this new write-up, we would be required as assessors to approve open space for even developed land. So let's say a gravel bank would be approved as open space as long as they didn't put a permanent structure on the property. Let's say a commercial building came in and put in a 5-acre parking lot. That parking lot, even though it was paved, would be approved as open space under these new guidelines. So for the assumption that this is written exactly the same as 1979 is not the case.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Williams.
I do have a question. I sat in on that ag meeting the other night, and this is what was proposed by the ag commission, correct?
What I just read.
Yes,
was-
yeah. Mhm.
okay, so then the paperwork that we got from Alvin, that he wants to change the word to passive recreation. Correct, that's what you put in. Why do you want to classify that as passive recreation?
Well, a good lawyer, looking at that last sentence, say to himself, that's one hell of a honeypot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Hill, you mean the open space shall not include residential dwellings or commercial buildings, land containing other structures? Is that the language you're talking?
Yes.
Land containing other
In other words,
structures?
I'm, with my proposal, I'm trying to clarify exactly, so it takes it away from any question.
Have there been questions brought up in the 40 some odd years with the way the wording was done with
We've
the
got to
other?
look, we have to look forward.
Yeah, but we're
As well.
changing it, which would make it, you have a problem.
No, I'm not changing, I'm clarifying.
You're clearing, well,
Clarifying.
the word gets changed. It
Miss-
has to change.
Mr. Rice?
Nonprofit, passive, recreate. If I, let's say I have 100 acres and I want to put up a wonderful golf course, well, I'm gonna, or I have 100 acres and I'm gonna have a gravel mining operation, I'll put it in open space. No.
Mr. Rice?
So that eliminates paying any kind of tax on it. If it's
Okay.
it's a reduced tax requirement for that gravel bank, right?
That's
So
Yeah.
that's why, Mr. Pro,
that's why I wanted to
everybody,
make
is
it
that,
specific.
isn't our mission, the number one on the 3 points that we have to do is to put it in, accept it into the POCD? Why don't we do that? And then, as I suggested, sit down with the assessor and hash it out, and come up with some specifics as to what it should be, and then bring it to the public and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So my suggestion is to table this until we get some specific wording on that, but move that forward. Because currently, that nobody's gonna lose their open space criteria or whatever you wanna say,
Classification?
classification until we change it.
Wait, with Ms. Tennant and Mr. Williams.
Just in terms of the tabling, I just want to remind the commission that we are on a timeline in terms of whether this is going to be available to new enrollees this year. And that needs to be essentially completed before the end of the fiscal year because of when the enrollment period is.
So fiscal year is June,
Mr.
correct?
Chairman.
So that
So,
gives us a few
so do
months.
we want to rush this along
Yeah, no.
just to satisfy a half a dozen people that may want to enroll in this program this year, this current year, or get it set up? 'Cause anybody that's in it right now is gonna be grandfathered until we change this.
Mr. Williams?
The Ag Committee recommended to have it this way. Why should we change it at all? It should be the way that,
Well, I'll answer that just for me personally. I am concerned about, what Mr. Hopkins said about gravel pits. I don't think that's the sort of land that should be receiving tax reductions for an open space designation.
We have
From our
gravel
town.
pits being registered now as open space. Are there any gravel pits that are open space, granted open space?
But if they see this,
but the assessor should be able to go and look at that property and say, well,
I've
no,
already-
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hopkins.
Sorry. I have looked. So the actual gravel operation of any gravel operation around town is not has not been coded as open space.
Okay.
They have not, but they could be, Mr. Hopkins?
So then Sky could fall tomorrow too.
Yeah, but they're gonna do it.
Depends if we get these new regulations.
Correct. If this language passes, I would be required to allow open space as a gravel operation.
Hold on. Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Hopkins. So what Mr. Hopkins just said is that the language has passed
Okay.
yes, if we pass this language in front of us today, gravel pits could be coded as open space.
And
Along
again,
with
my
other
question,
areas.
in the 43 years that this mistake has been in
Ms.
place, hasn't happened?
Ms. Halsey,
This wording was
I
not
get what
there.
you're saying. I get what you're saying.
because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't.
I get
And just by bringing up this discussion tonight, anyone with a gravel pit or golf course or whatever else, hearing it is gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go and apply for that tomorrow.
Do you do each one? Okay, I've got a question for the assessor. Okay, all right, I understand the fact that if we put it in this way, somebody with a gravel pit's gonna be able to come into the town and say, I want open space. You give me open space. Do you go and check out anybody that comes forward with what they want as open space? Do you go check out
No.
that property?
So yes, so the only thing that I would be able to check in regards to the language would be is if there is a building on the property. That's the only restriction in this language as it stands. So if I go to the property and there's not a structure on it and it is 3 acres, I would be required to approve it as open space.
it would be
I think I can
required to.
clarify
Ms.
this a
Penn?
little bit. So, and Paul, based on our conversations, you correct me if I've misunderstood this. In the past, with the incorrectly adopted and administered PA 490, which we all acknowledge was not through malicious intent, through some level of oversight, because no criteria were ever described or indicated, the assessors were using discretion, and that discretion allowed them to do things like exclude paved areas, exclude gravel pits because they are in fact disturbing the land and therefore developing it, even if it's a limited kind of development. But once language is formally adopted, your discretion is reduced to that which is described, right? Is that the gist of the conversation you and I had?
Correct. Yes, that where there was some discretion in what the term undeveloped was. So there was some interpretation that the assessor could use. In this new language, that's been removed in place of simply saying that if there's a building on the property, that's the only exclusion.
Mr. Rice?
Back to my question, there is no real reason why we have to expedite this tonight and get this done. And that if the assessor is gonna continue, everybody that's in the open space, I don't see why, other than putting something that the town of Taunton will adhere to PA 970 in the plan of conservation. period. Isn't that gonna cover our requirement moving forward to the next step, that it is in a plan of conservation, so now we can accept PA 970 and set some criteria for that.
My understanding is that our role in the plan of conservation and development, and anyone please correct me if I'm wrong, is to not only to say that, the town of Thompson will, buy into the open space designation, but this is the recommendation of the land to be enrolled.
That's, yeah, it is the
I
recommendation
disagree.
of
Why?
areas.
Is that I think personally, is that POCD is really too much verbiage that's not necessary in that POCD that we currently approve. Is that instead of just stating the facts that, yes, okay, we're gonna adhere to the requirements, the regulation of PA 970, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Mr. Black,
So just to
were you
recap,
in the-
that statement is, the first step in the process to adopt the PA 490 open space classification is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend land within the town for preservation as open space within the town's plan of conservation and development. That statement is essentially taken right out of the PA 490 guidebook. So the areas, at the very least, those first two bullet points, which are all zoning districts and the minimum eligible area.
Okay, so that's all we have to do, is that all areas in the town of Thompson would be eligible for this exception, and the minimum being 3 acres.
You
Period.
could make that
That's all we
case.
can do.
Yeah, you could make that case, and then the details can get hashed out in the ordinance. I would generally recommend that the language of what's in your POCD should mirror what ends up in the ordinance very closely. I think it provides much more clarity.
Mr. Black, were you,
Aaron covered one of the points. Another, Paul, you correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone that is under Public Act 490 open space now will remain under that. The sign-up period is October, give or take 30 days, October 1. But if the person that's not going to be able to sign up under this is the person where the property exchanged hands. I don't know whether that's before or now, but at a given date, for instance, if somebody bought property tomorrow, as long as they put it in for Public Act 490 during that window, September, October, they wouldn't qualify now. If we move this forward, they would be able to. Anyone who is already enrolled it would not affect them at all unless they change the use or the ownership changes.
Correct. Yes.
Correct.
Well, that's a football.
Great. And then
So
actually,
people, so we still would be taking applications for farm and forest. Just if there was no language written in, then we couldn't accept an application for open space.
and Randy, were you in these agriculture, these ag meetings?
Yes.
About this? So were there, and I apologize for not being at them, I was unable to be. But were there other discussions about other qualifications as well, or?
The only thing that was really a question is the point that Alvin brought up. The commission members voted on this the way it is, but with that one exception. The rest of that is, the important thing that the Ag Commission was doing was recommending that the P&Z adopt this into the plan of conservation development. And from there on in, it gets to be more, there's a lot of people that are gonna have decisions in this.
Yeah, the board is in, and then I made Mr. Rice wait a while, and then Mr. Williams.
The point is that the plan of conservation is a guide, it's not a regulation for us, okay? We look for it, but it's not that we have to adhere to, so I think the less we're just in, we're gonna adopt PA 490. And that's it with the two things, the 3 acres and the other section. That's all we have to put in there.
Okay, we have a few other members of the Ag Committee here. If Kaiser's on, has anybody else seen what Alvin Hill proposed?
I don't think Kai's seen it because, Alvin brought it in today, so it wouldn't be.
No, no,
Have you-
I didn't,
Valerie,
I
have you
didn't
seen
see it.
Valerie's opposed to it. I mean, was one that wrote it. I questioned that.
Well, Vern, did you want to look at this?
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't want to be out of order. I had a question.
Yeah, just, so, well, yeah, so we'll
Okay.
actually,
Give it
sorry,
to
yeah, no, just a point of order. Mr. Rice.
well, what you started to say, having people involved, is to, what's wrong with us, again, do the first step, getting it into the P O C D, and then looking at everybody's comments and come up with a final thing. Now, I received, I don't know, I assume you did too, but late this afternoon, there was all the corrections and emails
Yeah.
coming
All over
at
the
me
place.
all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, not all day, because I wasn't home all day, but every time I turned on a commit, there was somebody else making comments about that P O C D, so I don't know who's on first base at this point.
Yeah, but yeah, my only concern, Mr. Rice, is if the act indicates that the Planning and Zoning Commission's role is to recommend which land is suitable for open space. And I realized that I jumped in line over Mr. Williams, or no, I did get to Mr. Williams, didn't I?
My point is that.
But so
we're
if that's what we
saying
put in
all
the
land-
POCD,
all
if
land
I
in
can
Thompson
finish, Mr.
Is
Rice.
eligible.
Well, okay, so then I
Eligible for open space.
Right.
All land is eligible for open space classification,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and what you're saying is that we take this now, put this in place so that we are in the program. I just want to make sure that that's all we're doing and then we're not going to change anything and we would go along and then work on it down the road, but get into the program. That's what you're saying, correct?
Can I answer?
You may,
Yeah,
Mr. Rice.
yeah.
Is that, no, all I'm saying is let's get it in the P O C D. That's
Yeah,
it, period.
Yeah,
That's the first step that we have to
Yeah,
do. Then
yeah.
from there, develop the regulation.
and getting into the POCD, nothing changes. We're just accepting it, correct?
We're in the process.
Yes.
There's 3 steps that we have to go.
Yes, yeah, I
That's
just
the
want a
first step. I
clarification
wanna
of what
get
you're
that
saying,
done.
and nothing changes, nobody loses their classification
No.
that have been in it since, you know.
The
nobody
assessor is
loses
not
it,
gonna,
Correct?
That's correct.
nobody's gonna
Okay.
lose their
We do not
classification.
Do this, anyone who buys land that would qualify, assessor will not be able to
Accept
accept
that
their
application.
application.
Right.
Until the rest of it is taken care of.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not a biggie.
So
As
my-
far as-
my-
Except that we will run out of time to get that through a town meeting so that it can be in effect for when the window, September and October is upon. us.
Okay, now I'm really confused. You're saying that we accept POC, and you're saying, no, we can't do that, we
I
wouldn't hit
didn't
that
say
window.
that. I say that's what we need to do tonight, and we can go home. That's really all we need to do tonight.
Is just take it, but not change anything.
Okay.
Except the POC, have the Planning and Zoning Commission, accept open space into the POC.
And then does Ms. Penn?
I just want to clarify the timeline that I've worked out with the first selectman that would enable us to get this to town meeting, right? Because remember, there's 3 bodies that are approving bodies, and each of those approving bodies has something slightly different to approve. This body approves the amendment to the POCD. Then it goes to the Board of Selectmen, who both ratifies the amendment to the POCD and moves it forward for the creation of the ordinance, which has to be written and reviewed in time for town meeting, which is in May. And I can tell you from having written an ordinance for the ordinance committee before, It's not something that gets written one day and then passed the next. It goes through a whole, so that is why we're suggesting that the timeline is tight. Now, you have some wiggle room if it doesn't make town meeting to do it maybe within another month in a separate referendum. But, you know, you're asking your townspeople to come out again and again and again separately for these things. So in a perfect world, that timeline would be approval tonight and by you guys, and that approval can be as presented with changes or denial, just like a special permit application. And then the plan was, and unfortunately Amy's dropped off, I was going to ask her to make sure I had the details straight. The plan would be whatever comes out of tonight would be on the Board of Selectmen agenda, not tomorrow, because that's not enough time, but therefore in 2 weeks, so that they can either approve with modification, or deny what's been presented to them, assuming that it gets approved in one form or another. Then the ordinance gets written. The ordinance committee probably gets involved there, but the Board of Selectmen ultimately, again, accepts the language of the ordinance. And then it's got to be published in time for town meeting. So it's not like everything's got to be done tomorrow. And like I say, we could add in a little bit of wiggle room to do a separate referendum. But again, you're asking your townspeople to come out multiple times for multiple votes.
Mr. Rice and Ms. Halsey.
I think the town meeting, this is the problem I feel. Everything is, why we have to meet somebody else's deadline. So let's hurry this up without really doing, as far as setting up a new town meeting for this, I'll bet you 100 people, if they know this is on the agenda, that they will accept it and move through it. So I don't think we have to run to that drummer. I'll tell you that.
Ms. Halsey.
I agree with what you said. Mark that one, Mr. Wright.
I did already.
Yeah, I understand the time frame. I get it. But guess what? What he just said, the people will come out if they're interested. We don't need to get this done right now. I say right now, we move forward and let the citizens come forward and speak. We've had our discussion now. It is time for the citizens to come forward. Then we can look at possibly taking action on this tonight or moving it, tabling it to another night. But I want to hear from the people that have been sitting here all night like we have. Because we could go back and forth, but I did agree with what you just said. I don't care about the time frame.
Make it, Russo, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Knock that one down.
So I say we let the citizens speak.
Is there anyone else who does want to say something before I close 13E and move on to item 14? Which is, comments, just 1 minute. Okay, in that case, item 14, I'm going to begin with Mr. Vanderbaan, I'm sorry.
Taking the place of.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Appreciate it, and I'll try to be brief. My name is Lee Vanderbaan. My wife and I own property that is adjacent to the property that Mr. Audette described. The current owner, Mr. Perlmutter, we bought it from him with the promise, and I have to point out, it is a deeded grant at this point. We have a deed, we're property owners, but we have property right to that 25 acres. Mr. Perlmutter sold us property with the under the assurance that we would have, in fact, deeded access to conservation wetland property of the 25 acres. Not 25 acres minus other houses that are built on there. It was the full 25 acres. And let me say that this is not the first time that Mr. Perlmutter, Mr. Audette, has come before this commission with the expressed interest of building that 25 acres up. Initially, his proposal was to carve 4 properties out away from that 35 acres. And those are the 4 properties that are around it, plus the fifth property, which is on the corner, which he owned at that time. Secondly, the next opportunity was a number of years later. He approached this commission with a proposal to develop that property, and the commission rejected it. He failed to meet the requirements, and at that time, Mr. Perlmutter was told that he could build only one house as the access to the property was insufficient. What has changed? Has anything changed in the nearly 20 years that has gone on? And if so, I'd like to know what it is. Or if you propose to change it, I'd like to know your rationale for doing that. As you can see, having a property right to that 25 acres is meaningful to us. We paid dearly for it. And interestingly, Mr. Perlmutter has benefited considerably over the years by a reduced tax base on it because it was open space conservation land. So I don't see how he can now change the rules of the game. Who benefits from that? Sir?
Can you tell me, was that a conservation easement on that property? Or, yeah, but this makes a big difference whether, or was it wasn't this Public Act 490?
I don't believe it was.
Okay, so was that in your deed that this was left this open space? Is your part owner of that? Is that the land? That
All the drawings that we had, and I think they're on file in the assessor's office, indicate conservation wetland area. And I have to point out that the area does contain vernal pools and water courses and wetlands. So
Thank you, Mr. Vanderman. As that goes to the next steps, it's something the CEO will make sure to look into.
I'm sorry,
I said the CEO will make sure to look into this as the project continues through its process. Thank you. And I do want to, if there are citizens' comments pertaining to the PA 490, sir.
490.
Can you just you see your name and address for the record, please?
Saint here, off the road. At 490. Why can't we pass it? Wait, 179. Freeze all new applications. Don't settle.
Mr. Santier. Ms. Clark.
So Valerie Clark, 105 Home Road. I want to reiterate that this is not about development, it's about municipal expense reduction. And that is relative to housing and commercial buildings, which are ones that consume municipal services and thereby cost the town money. I also want to address that if you may, I don't know how valid it is when Mr. Rice says the assessor is going to continue to allow people that are already being taxed in this way to continue. If Mr. Rice says that in a meeting, is that what the assessor is going to abide by? I also want to address the gravel pit. Over the course of 43 years, I have had two, not one, two gravel pits on my property, and I never was removed from open space at any time. Those are reclaimed and are open space to this day. The intention was to remain as open space. They never consumed any municipal expenses. And the last thing is the proposal on passive recreation only. I want to talk about what that excludes. Firstly, it excludes bicycle riding. You can't ride your bicycle on your property because that's not a passive activity as defined. You can't ride a horse on your property because that's not a passive activity. You also can't play golf on the property. So those are my comments regarding passive activity, and I'll reiterate that the Agriculture Commission spent hours on this, speaking with citizens, speaking with Ms. Nichols, speaking with the assessor, And this was the recommendation that most closely modeled what prior assessors had put in place. And that's why we recommended it and why I've requested you not make any changes to the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Bell.
Vern Butler. Had a question for Paul, as a follow-up from the meeting that we had the other night, and just for clarification. Because we stood over in the corner and I asked you, does everybody that's currently in the program need to reapply this year as the program was improperly administered? You said yes.
That would be correct. If the new language is in place, then yes, everybody would have to reapply.
But if the new language is not in place, they do not have to reapply.
There's no legal basis for an application.
That was not my understanding the other night, which is why I was extremely concerned about the timing on this. Because if you have all these people currently in the program and they can't reapply and they are not in the program anymore, that's a big problem.
So I think that would be a discussion that we would have with the selectmen to make sure that it's known that everybody in the program would stay in the program.
Okay, so just keep that on radar here, because if somehow that slips off, you've got a lot of people in town in that program. You don't want them all out of it because we didn't get this done, and we need to have it. Because I'm sure they're going to look at this in a broader sense than just whether it's in the POCD. This is a legal thing also.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Dave Clark, 105 Elm Road. I just want to add a couple of things to what has already been said, but my wife is Valerie Clark, by the way, so disclosure. I attended all the ag meetings where this was discussed as a citizen. And they had special meetings. They went out of cycle. Let's have a meeting. Let's rush another meeting, Thursday's meeting. Let's get one more meeting in before they can present it here. The general idea was, it was believed something was in place since 1979. This was what the citizens of the town believed. And what they attempted to do at these meetings, with a lot of input from a lot of people, was stay as close to that, but still have it something that could become an ordinance. I've always followed the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? Don't make something complicated that wasn't complicated. Just make it an ordinance. And I always try to keep in mind the words, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but the words in the Iroquois Confederacy, which is what the United States Constitution is based on. In all our deliberations, consider the effect on the next 7 generations. So whatever you decide here is the future of Thompson. And many of the families in this town have been here since the town first started. All the names, the street names, those families are still here. The Orrs are still here. The O'Leary are still here. The town names are still there. This town has a lot of history. And the people who are here want it to stay that way. The people who have been here. I'm new here. I'm not even accepted as a townie yet. I've only been here for 40 years. But my son is a 3rd generation. And his generation is important, and the future generation. And so please keep that in mind. If you accept what they've done, it qualifies for what the state's looking for. It qualifies for everything else. Recreation is recreation. Don't muck with it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
We've been in open space, thousands, 400 acres. Space, 2010, works up again. So my concern is when we start to throw the language around about passive recreation, how do you define that in the bigger picture? So yes, people golf on the golf course for so many hours a day, but then you have kept that as open space land for 6 generations now.
Same thing with our motor sport park. Yes, there are paved areas, but 80% of it is grass. And we're only using the paper pipe a year. So I think when we start to look at these regulations, we have to be very detailed about how we look at them. It can't be a broad brush with us, because that pulls us out of open space or taxes. We're already the biggest tax. Biggest employer in town. And I don't think it's fair to classify us just because we're a golf course or a racetrack. And it was clearly in the language that was put out a few weeks ago that I pushed back against. If I let it be that, or fences, areas full of grass, or disqualified for open space. So I firmly believe that what we put forth for the acquisition should be pushed forward. It should be looked at in detail, probably at another meeting. I agree with John Rice. But I'm afraid that with some of the comments that came up tonight, we're just going to word golf course there. That's the golf course, they must go to space. That's just not true. So I just want to put that into record, and that my letter was read into the public record of the Ag Commission. That should probably be needed again at some point, or it says here of my position on the open space issue. So that's it. Thank you.
As this is now our comment on things with regard to the CEO's response to the ad, that was a very good job. Clearly, it was an ad that the public meetings have actually, the attendance has gone up. Zoom era.
But 1 second, Sean, I have a comment here that you can't be heard for the folks online. Can you, I've never known you to be soft-spoken before. Why start now?
So Zoom meetings have increased attendance. People who, want to sit on their computer and complain now can sit on the computer and watch the meeting. Most people, it's human nature. They don't show up for a meeting until it's something they care about. That was said by a couple members tonight. People really care. They're going to show up, whether there's Zoom, whether there's not, before COVID, after COVID. And you clearly didn't take away people's rights to chickens. You changed it. You didn't take them away, but that's what we're dealing with right now. My concern with changing the citizen comments, I've been pushing at every meeting to have citizens comments at the end of the meeting. And one of the reasons I think that's so important, because things that are discussed during the course of a meeting, there's inaccuracies that are said, and they can be cleared up at the end of the meeting by a citizen who may know something different. And what you did tonight, while it's an effort to get the public involved in a particular item, if that item had been item A, and then you had another discussion on possible action at item D, then what? You're going to put, how many citizens' comments are we going to have? So that's something that I think to consider moving forward. I'm not even sure Robert's rules allows you to do what we did, by the way, to split up an item like that and stick citizens' comments in between discussion and action. Never heard of it. But I think something that you need to look at, because people can speak at the beginning of the meeting, people can speak at the end of the meeting. And I'm very thankful that you added them at the end of the meetings because they're needed. But I'm not sure how it works moving forward. Just move them around and stick them in the middle of an item. Because if you have 2 or 3 items that are the exact same, people want to talk about, then what? So I think that's just something to consider in the future if you're going to start moving around your comments. And then next part to that would be if 4 items later, something was missaid, there's no more citizen comments at the end. Took them away, you stuck them after item A or B or whatever. So it's a slippery slope. Something to consider a little more serious.
Thank you, Mr. Brissett.
You've got Nadine.
Ms. Williams-Edwards.
Yes, hi. Nadine Williams-Edwards, 131 Spicer Road. Okay, I apologize. I didn't want to get in the middle of the PA 490 conversation, but I too have commentary that is not related to PA 490 that is important. And I'd like to say that I disagree that we cleared up the chicken issue. And talk about chickens, right? It almost sounds ridiculous, right? I think my head was almost going to explode listening to the language. And where I'm going with this is that this is not a cut to anyone. This is the reality, is that where we're at right now is that as a town and as equal taxpayers, we've got a problem, right? We've got a problem with loss of confidence. We've got a problem with finger pointing. We've got a problem with transparency. And when I hear and listen to the 4-page from Cynthia, and thank you for putting that together, but I have to say that I'm still confused. I do not know. I'd like to consider myself a seemingly intelligent person. And I do still not know if what changed means that if you go beyond 10 chickens, is there a difference today? I don't know the answer to that. Secondly, I don't know the answer to if we now have expanded the ability to have fowl in all of the districts. What did we restrict with the roosters not in certain districts? So this is kind of where the crux is, and there's no silver bullet to this. But what I just want to point out in this commentary is that this is very, very complex language. And what I'd like to share with you just very quickly, and this is, someone put this together for me that is a lot smarter than me, but just to step back for one moment. In the regulations, there are 46,774 words. There's 3,478 paragraphs. There's 1,522 sentences, and it's written at a 14th grade reading level, which 50% of the population in the state of Connecticut, not taken away from anything, including myself, do not understand this. How do we follow this? And how do we fix this gap? You know, can we just talk about potentially, you know, taking out the rage, taking out the finger pointing, taking out, you know, the outrage, I'll go back to that, and maybe putting a side-by-side compare, because I do not think that we solved the chicken conversation tonight. And if it's just chickens, what else is it that we might want to compare side by side? And I'm just calling this out to the commission on behalf of the citizens and on behalf of myself, because I spend a lot of time with the 2009 regs. Is it 2009? The 2009 regs against the 2022 or last updated 2021, I believe. And there's, you know, we went from 109 pages to 147 pages, and I read them side by side and try to figure out, you know, what does this really mean? Because there is a perception, or there is a paranoia that what the heck, people were side blinded, and I hate to go back to it, but it's a reality. We're going to have to go back to it. And I agreed with Mr. Brissett that we need to put that gun range, you know, coming out of left field to rest, or we got to face it. You rip the Band-Aid off. This is, you know, the bad news isn't going to get better with age, you know, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perotti.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments at this time?
I'd just like to point out to the man that his chickens installed. No roosters in the town of Thompson. I incubate all my own birds. How do I replace them? Tell me how I replace them without a rooster.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Thank you.
Roosters are not permitted in Lake District, and what was the other?
The former R20.
Yeah, the former Lake District and, sorry. Common Residential District, Lake District and Common Residential District are the two.
Okay.
Can I answer your question? Thank you. Those are the two districts, roosters are not allowed because they're small parcels of property. Every other district, you can have a rooster. No one said you couldn't. have a
Thank you, Ms.
rooster.
Dunn. Thank you, Mr. Birch. No, so citizens' comments, right?
I had 3 minutes.
No, yes, so,
Well, 3 times at this meeting.
Mr. Birch. So yes, you may use your 3 minutes to address your comments to the commission, but the citizens' comments period is not a question and answer.
I apologize. Yeah, sorry.
Asked me questions last week and I got accosted by a town clerk, who lectured me on zoning board and audit. Don't answer questions, you're truthful. I had 3 people tell me that audit was finished. They all lied to me. There was a big butt at the end of that finished audit. 3 town employees lied to me. One of them sitting up with you.
Brenda and then Blair's on there.
Well, it's not question and answer, I guess, I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm gonna ask it anyway. How does the person know which district they're in? Have we told everyone in the town of Compton what district they're in yet? What is the vehicle that we use to let people do that? Know what the new districts
Commissioner
are
comments?
and who's in what district.
Thank you, Ms. Romanek.
Did I get any questions?
Look at the map.
I'll speak in my commissioner's comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Blair.
Mr. Cole?
Hi, Blair Cole, 172 County Home Road, Thompson. I just wanted to ask, going back to the PA 490, there was a comment that everyone would have to reapply. And I'm wondering if there is no PA 490 program for anyone to reapply to, what would the effect be on our next property tax bills?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Cole. I don't have the answer to that question. I would direct you to the assessor's office for that question. And
If you
I'm sorry.
want Paul to address it after citizens' comment closes, I'm sure.
Yeah, so
I'd like to direct it to him if he's still online.
he might be able to get into that as we move on to our next agenda item where we discuss possible action on PA 490.
Okay, I guess it's important for people who are currently enrolled to know that if they can't be enrolled, what their property's going to be assessed at.
Yeah, that certainly. I agree with that. Ms. White.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you could come close.
Sarah White, 308 East Thompson Road. My concern is that unless you put forward the language that the Agricultural Commission put forward in both the Plan of Conservation Development, and if that's what you ultimately approve, otherwise, what I'm seeing here is a setup to eventually alter the language that was put forward by the Agricultural Commission, and that there's maneuvering going on, and it looks highly suspicious because we keep seeing pushback, and we keep hearing about the timeline. We got to hurry up. We got to do this. And we do this. No, we're not going to change anything. But then we've got to make all these little wickets. Then I hear talk about alter right up in an ordinance. It's very difficult. We're going to do this. And we're going to do that. I smell a rat here, and I smell the prospect of it being altered. And again, it's worked fine. Everything's been in harmony. Nobody is challenged at any level. And again, the people that are going to be voting on this, had you had to face these questions at candidates night, how would you have responded? Because I have a hunch you might not be trying to alter things now, but it's just highly suspicious. So we're going to be watching. Don't try to maneuver. Don't try to sneak anything in. We're not dummies in this room. And you can't pull the wool over swamp Yankees, okay?
Thank you, Ms. White. Any other comments at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to item 15, possible action on PA 490 open space language for POCD.
I make
Mr.
a
Chairman, would
motion.
you like to have Paul address Blair's question though? 'Cause
Can I
think
get
that is
Mr.
a-
Hopkins to answer that question first?
Yes, Paul Hopkins, assessor. So as it stands right now, we've been since 1979 allowing open space. There's no plan in place to remove open space from those who have it. I don't think another year of allowing existing parcels in open space to continue would be problematic. So I would obviously discuss this with the Board of Selectmen, but I, as the assessor, have no intention of removing any any open space parcel as October 1st turns around. If there's no action taken.
Paul, I'm not sure, but I think Blair might have been asking, and Blair, please correct me if I'm wrong, what the consequences would be if it's not passed at all.
So if it's not, if it's not passed at all, it would be, it's not a blanketed answer. How it's been administered in the past is there is supposed to be one value code attributed to open space. How it's been administered is every parcel is coded differently. So I can't give a single answer that this is what the effect will be. There will be parcels, if it's entirely an open space, could be significant. However, if it's a parcel that already has a building lot on it and it's only the residual parcel that's in open space, the impact of that change will be very minimal. So anybody that's in it that has any questions can call the office and I can go over their parcel specifically.
No. Ms. Halsey,
I make a motion that we take what the Ag Commission brought forward and voted on. And we take that as it is, as it's worded. As we've been told many times before by certain people on this committee, well, we can change it down the road. Right now, I say take it the way it is and put it in, do what is right for the town, do what is right for the people. Put it in the way the Ag Commission brought it forward so that we get this squared away and that it is done. There's enough comments from this room, from online. We need to do what is right by the people. Put it in the way the Ag did it, the way the Ag brought that language forward. I bring that motion forward that we accept that.
Ms.
I second that, as long as it stays that way and it's not being changed.
Ms. Halsey moves, Mr. Williams seconds, the amendment, the acceptance of the amendment to the POCD is presented in the language from the Agricultural Commission.
Because it ain't broke, why are we fixing it? Let's do what's right for the townspeople, please.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Krogel?
I'd like to know he made a amendment to it.
Well,
That we do not change it, and that, if that's what he's suggesting, and that's part of the amendment, it has to be made, but I can't see how.
Yeah, and
okay, I'll
Because everything down the road, some way is going to be discussed on anything.
Yeah, I appreciate your point, Mr. Krogel.
well, I just don't want to change.
So is
3
that more of a
weeks from now.
discussion on the motion?
No, I'll second the motion the way that she said it.
The amendment, the motion is made and seconded as made. Mr. Williams' additional comments are not part of his intention for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Krogel.
I say we do what's right for the people.
Yes, Gloria. A motion to accept the amendment to the POCD as presented by the Agricultural Commission. Mr. Rice.
Can you state what that is? What is the,
The paper that we,
what is
that,
the suggestion? Can you read it
that,
also?
that
so
paper that
everybody
we
knows?
just got read, I don't know how many pages. I'll dig it out and read it to you, Mr. Rice.
Do you want it read again, Mr. Rice?
I'll read it again if you want.
That's all.
What
That's what
Tira
it
read
is.
was the amendment.
Didn't the Ag Commission just take on that, whatever Jones says, to keep it as the three?
I'm sorry. Okay, so you know what? I apologize, Mr. Rice. I mischaracterized Ms. Salsi's motion. I believe the motion Ms. Salsi made, which I unintentionally mischaracterized, is to accept the amendment to the POCD as it was presented and as read by the planner. That is I apologize for that mistake.
And you just put that in the POCD.
It would be amended to, it would be added to the POC. So I apologize for my mischaracterization of the motion.
Do you need me to read it again, John?
No, just, So it was just a couple.
Any further discussion on the motion?
That's all it's going, it's just in the P O C D.
That's the only thing you have. the
we're not
authority to make
accepting.
choices on.
Okay. Any other motion or any other discussion? Hearing none, it will be a yes to approve the amendment, no to deny the amendment. Mr. Blackmer.
I'm having a real problem with that last item, but I'll vote yes.
Mr. Hill,
Alvin Hill, no.
James Halsey, yes.
Ray Williams, yes.
Mike Kruger, yes.
Mr. Rice,
Randy, no.
Dave Plosky, yes.
he's
He's
thinking.
thinking.
So, John B. Rankin, yes.
Okay, yeah, Ms. Orlovac,
Kai Zorlavac, yes.
and Joseph Purdy Brown, I vote no, just because I'm concerned about that last language as well. And Mr. Clark said, I think about the 7 generations ahead, but the amendment is passed. Item 17, Commissioner's comments. I'm sorry, you're right. Item 16, review of CBA application. Okay, listen, order, please. We need to listen to Ms. Dunn. We need to listen to Ms. Dunn, please. Order.
Question on that vote, what's the voting criteria for passage?
It wouldn't be 3/4. The majority or the only other standard we have is.
Yeah, half plus one.
But it's not like sometimes it has to be a majority of those present,
Correct.
which could be 4. Sometimes it has to be a majority of the full commission, which is 6. Right, like if there's only 6 people present and voting, you can get something passed with 4. But certain things you cannot get passed with 4. But I don't think this is one of them. We reached,
And it doesn't matter, you made at least 6.
Yeah.
I think you had
I
7.
think it was 7. Thank you, Mr. Rice. Ms. Dunn.
Okay, this item was put back on the agenda. We hadn't had on there for years, when we went over the bylaws. So anyways, what I did is I just copied and pasted minutes that they approved one application. And so I put it in my memo. Does everybody have any questions on the application? Hearing none, that's the report.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Item 17 is commissioners' comments. There any at this time? Mr. Lanky.
One, I would like to let the commissioners know that this is something that was brought to my attention but I believe the people had left, but this happens to be with the paintball thing. And I got involved with it because they approached me. And I've got pictures with dates on it with original people that came in for a home occupancy for a paintball business. Okay, and we had no problem with it, but because one person, she owns the property, but does not live in Connecticut. Okay, and we found this out after we approved it, because we thought she lived in Connecticut, okay, she was whatever. But what turned out to be a paintball business to sell paintballs, cans or whatever, they, over time, with the pictures and everything, you can see what was being done is they turned around and they came in with equipment to clean some property behind, and I got a picture of how the property is and all this other stuff. Right? Hang on a minute. I got it. Here it is. And this is how the property looks. So if you all want to look at it, you can see it's like just about 4 acres. All right. And what's been happening is what they did was they used the backside, create a paintball course. All right. And in on that, they took this this part of the property that looks like a little funnel, and they created a parking lot for more than 5-10 cars. And on a weekend, they were having, on an average, sometimes 10 to 20 cars, average 2 people a car. this was going on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, the most. Sunday was the worst. And you could hear them, the guns and everything, and these people, and with the pictures, like I said, I'll even let people see them, you people see them, where these houses are on the opposite side of Fabian Road from where they're right here. The best thing for everybody to do is these are the houses right here. They're right in here. I mean, over here, I'm sorry, I got it upside down. This house and this house and this house. This is over 300 feet from where this paintball course is to these houses. Paintball guns, and I did my homework research, called a lot of paintball places in Rhode Island, Mass, Connecticut, and I even was out in one in Pennsylvania, a 750-acre paintball. You want to see that place? It's gorgeous. But what they have to protect the neighbors was what impressed me. This one here with the netting they had 1-inch squares. Paintball is 13 millimeter. Okay, so you need a netting less than 13 millimeter square. With these houses were getting pasted. The street, Hatchton Road, was getting pasted. And they were doing this Saturdays and Sundays, and they did it. We had a cease and desist order put on the business because they were advertising it and all this other stuff. And they still continued with the cease and desist. And they were really giving the neighbors. So to get back to this, the property owners have their rights. Well, what about the property owners that live next door when they have their kids, the grandkids? I was there a couple weekends visiting these people when they called me home just to see. And, you know, they had their kids there and everything. And I'll tell you, I even went up Paxton Road about 1,000 feet. And you could hear them swearing, you could hear them yelling, you could hear the paint gun going off. I got nothing against anybody wanting to use a paintball. It's like anything else. I don't care if somebody wants to put in a private target range or a target on their property. They can have it, as long as they meet the state codes and state everything. This is something we really need to address because they're gonna start up in the spring, guaranteed, and they're gonna keep running with it because they think they have it over us. So it's something we need to really sit down and look at and discuss.
Will you share that with Cindy?
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
The only thing I want to correct is they never received a home occupation. And anything they came in for.
Was just for the home occupancy.
No.
Yeah, but they never.
They don't have a home occupation
Never.
permit?
No, I can go get the keys. and move them.
I apologize for that.
But I believe not. I can, you know.
believe they pulled it.
What?
They withdrew it.
Right.
I have files in
Yeah,
there.
they come for an application.
I have.
It was a
But anyway,
process.
they kept on going
And
and they
they're
were.
running a business out of a place that they're not
She's-
even having the
No.
permission to
No,
occupy.
she has told me that she canceled her LLC, so they do not have an LLC.
They don't have
with
it,
the
okay.
state.
But on the map, it's smart.
But they broke every other rule.
Okay, Al. Okay,
So
Al.
thank you, Mr. Lang. Thank you.
You can nip at me all
Um,
you want.
We'll
I'll still
follow up
smile
on
at
that.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Lang. Any other comments from the commissioners at this time, Mr. Rice?
Respond to one that says, excuse me, one of the citizen was inquiring where they voted or what district they're in. I would suggest they go to the registrar of voters.
I think it was the zoning
I think it
district.
was Brenda wanted to know what
Yeah.
district.
All
zoning
they have to do
district
is go to the assessor's office, get their property card. It's right on there. But the citizens don't know that. You know, a lot of people don't know they can get that.
The zoning map is available. The zoning map is available on the.
Much easier to go get your property card.
But that's gonna change. It just changed. You're talking about the voting district?
No, not the voting. We are not talking about voting districts. Any other,
Zoning district.
any other commissioners' comments? Mr. Williams?
I just go on and make a comment on, you know, we amend agendas all the time. And we're lucky to have a second citizen's comment because we never had it before. And I will look into, I usually always have my Robert's rule book with me and I don't have it tonight. Otherwise I would. I am gonna look into that, but
Need it?
I'm not past that now,
Yeah.
but I am gonna look into that, but we amended agendas before,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I've
Thank you,
amended
Mr. Williams.
agendas with my boards also.
Any other commissioners' comments? Yes, yeah, I just want to, I was going to address Roman Act about the district map and, available in their assessor card, it's available on the website. I also wanted to thank Mr. Warner for highlighting where our language is not as clear as it needs to be. So for example, in Article 7, Section 2 of our bylaws, it says a simple majority of the 10 regular members of the commission shall constitute a quorum. That is, and has been interpreted by this commission as long as I think these bylaws have been in existence, to be a determination that a quorum is 6, meaning a majority of the 10 regular members. Right? We have both regular members and alternate members on the commission. And I think in an attempt to be clear, right, doesn't mean 10 members or 13 total members, which is a majority. I think in an attempt to be clear, this may have created further confusion. The role of the alternate commission members is to fill in when regular members are absent. Once seated, have the full voting rights of all members. It's the reason for the alternate member existence. And so once a quorum of 6 members, either regular and alternate, is met, the commission may continue its business. And so in the comments Mr. Warner made last month, he took issue to our declaring a quorum with alternate members. And I think certainly that line in our bylaw could be clarified. That's all I wanted to say this evening. Seeing no other commissioner comments, the next regular meeting of the Town of Thompson Planning and Zoning Commission will be on March 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. here at the Merrill Snake Community Room. And with that, we move to item 18. Motion made by Mr. Blackmer, seconded by Ms. Salsi. This meeting is adjourned at 10:32 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.